The following is a presentation of Sertoba Media and Comey Media Incorporated.
A former NFL wide receiver, Super Bowl legend out of Super Bowl 47 star, Jacoby Jones Dead at 40. How will he be remembered, and how should the Ravens honor the former legend? With both undefeated CFL teams losing during the Week 6 action, does this change the flow of the 2024 season? An NFL Hall of Fame wide receiver recently snapped on reporters during a gold tournament. Was this reaction warranted, or should he issue an apology? All of that and more on the 46th edition of Total Football Talk. Welcome, one and all. It's that time again. Time for Total Football Talk action. I am your co-host, Drew Willingham, along with the EP of all EPs, my brother, Cole Johnson. Welcome back there, brother.
Well, it is great to be back. It's great to be seen. And once again, it's great to have you and this platform doing it one more time.
Absolutely, my man. It's definitely an excitement that I am trying my best to contain myself so I don't talk like a Speedy Gonzalez with the tongue today and go, but I am ready and hyped up to get this of one of two shows that we have going for Sertoba Media going today. And you're third. Like, you've been a busy guy today yourself with the morning shift, play caller sports talk as well, and now here. So I appreciate you again for bouncing around and still coming back here, because we have another great addition today as we have this guy to talk about later on in the episode. Definitely a picture from the moment as well. Look at how intense his eyes look in that moment. He is set off, and I feel that rage as you got other things that kind of hit you out of the blue. You weren't expecting a question like that. I feel that on this day. I know exactly where Jerry's coming from. With that being said, let's go ahead and get closer towards that discussion and get to the opening drive.
All right, let's go. We got trips right at 42, 989 on two. Ready? Great.
Here with this week in action in Week 6, we had a Week 6 bye with the Hamilton Tiger Kitties, as they definitely need it. They've been defeated all year long. They haven't gotten a single win at all, as they're 0-5 coming into this Week 6 bye, and they definitely needed it, as I previously stated. But with that being said, we had some good games, and we had one dumpster Pelican lopsided game that I did not call this past week that I know that you probably called an upset as well, but maybe not to this extent as what we saw, because of really not so much of an upset with the BC Lions with what they did the previous 5 weeks, over that span with Vernon Adams Jr. He's been crushing it absolutely on this field every single week. And before that game, we had on Thursday, the 7-11 game, we had Cameron Dukes and the Argonauts leading themselves over the Montreal Alouettes in an upset that we might have to play this twice, literally. Some may agree, some may disagree. Some, like Cole, may have called it last week, but hey, I give the Flyers where it's due when it comes to that, because he saw this coming as this being a potential loss for them against a team that has been struggling this year in the Toronto Argonauts, but they do have, a good amount of wins as well. They're not like the bye week team with the Tiger Cats this week. Like, they can ball out when they have the right opportunity. And in this case, where the Alouettes were struggling on a defense a little bit because they only had 3 sacks on the day with no turnovers. But the Argonauts, that's what tipped them over the scales. They had 2 sacks with 2 interceptions, along with Wynton McManus and Benji Franklin's interceptions for those that were the big key points in this game, because Kadeem Carey had 16 carries for 94 yards and 1 reception for 17 yards. But it wasn't enough to get this team over the hump and win this game. I mean, and it was enough to get him over the hump, but it wasn't like he put a lot of production into the running game to get touchdowns and score, because they only had 1 passing touchdown from Cameron Dukes, 3 of 3 on field goals for the kicker that I cannot pronounce his name. I will not even try, especially with as much caffeine as I'm amped up on right now to get through this. And thinking about Janarian Grant's 2 kick returns for 145 yards and 1 returning touchdown. Those were the big key points to that. Is the special teams, the defense stepped up for the Argonauts, and your kicker stepped up, because your offense didn't really put up but lackluster production again, which is part of the reason why they have as many losses as they do this year. So Cody Fajardo had 62 passing yards, 1 carry for 5 yards, and the QB2, Caleb Evans, came in for 127 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 5 carries for 18 yards, along with the receivers contributing, but it still wasn't enough because of the 2 interceptions that were thrown. That was the big key factor, in the fact that their defense wasn't even good enough to really muster up a 3 sacks with no turnovers. When you think about all that, Cole, I know I went a little quick with the tongue on it, but when you think about that, what are your thoughts when it comes to this game right here?
Well, congrats to the Argonauts. They needed a victory like this, not just against a quality team like the Alouettes, but actually go to their building and get the win. After having the trick turned on them in Toronto, this was huge for them. And they did it with not the greatest of passing performances, but the running game came through, and that helped a lot. So that was good. You had that production, which meant that you kept your defense off the field. Not saying their defense is bad, but your defense will be better when they are more refreshed, because you have that running game that keeps your team on the field. So that was good for them. And yeah, the Argonauts defense, they came through. They didn't you wouldn't say that they were the MVPs of the game, but they did their job. You know, they pressured the QBs, they put them down the turf twice, they got a couple turnovers. You want the defense to be a part of it. You want the offense to be a part of it as well. You want the special teams to be a part of it. That's exactly what this was. Team win again. For this time for the Argonauts, and for the Alouettes. I've been saying this even through this winning streak they've had until now. The lack of a running game and the fact that you only put up stats that just totaled 6 rushing attempts by their quarterbacks. That pretty much shows me that they were going to be in line for a huge, disappointing, colossal Now, you know it's bad when you only put up, between the 2 quarterbacks, 6 carries and 23 yards. That is how bad their rushing game is. And for the Alouettes, if they want to grab that Grey Cup, that running game has to be much better than this. And I figured this was going to bite them in the butt. It, unfortunately for this game, it did. But I guess better now than, say, when they're in playoff mode or in the playoffs itself. But I'm not going to say, well, this was bad Alouettes as much as I'm going to say this was good Argonauts. Team victory, and I give the Argonauts a lot of credit. Each phase stepped up in their own way.
Well, we've seen a trend when it comes to our 2 undefeated teams that we've had. Both the starting quarterbacks been knocked out. So because of that, and you think about that, they're going to their QB2, who didn't get as much preparation in the pregame planning or throughout the week because they weren't expected to go in. You know, it's going to show that lack of production is coming from that lack of practice with the first string team. So
it will show. All
that's coming into fruition as you got back-to-back games here that we're going to talk about with backup quarterbacks in the game. Who are filling in for a undefeated team at this point, and it all caved So I think that's a bigger story as well as what you're throwing out there. I mean, that's a good complimentary piece. I would just say that the backup quarterback is definitely making a mark in a negative way for these undefeated teams this past weekend. And something that we could definitely comment on with that, which is something we got to keep a lookout when it comes to this team's success for the rest of the season for both teams. Like if they have the opportunity to do that, because if they can't, this is not like the Brahmas in the UFL where that team was still strong enough with Quentin Dormady as the backup quarterback to take over and get the championship, get to the championship game on the back of Chase Garbers, who only came in like a week before the championship game was there, before when they were just starting the playoffs, and then Chase Garbers came back, led the team through the playoffs, but wasn't healthy for like the last 7 or 8 weeks of the season. Like he got hurt at the beginning of the year, and the backup quarterback comes in and leads them to the championship, or at least for a championship run for the way the standings are in that league. You can only get with so many wins, so many losses apart from each other. Like you can only be with so many games above 500 in order to get to the playoffs, the way it's structured there. So same thing here. You got teams like the Winnipeg Blue Bombers we're going to talk about here in a minute that definitely stepped it up to get back into the hunt, which is why they're where they're seated at for our slate of games this week. But when it comes to that, we'll see how things pan out after this next game that we have to talk about. And right here for our next game of the week that we have the Saskatchewan Roughriders, which it was still hard for me to say it because of the disappointment in their loss they had with the victory going to the BC Lions at home, Cole. I mean, a team that you predicted to get a win here, and I went the other way with my fanhood for the team, with the awesomeness of the name, how hype I was for that. They were going to get the win, and I was seemingly wrong for what would be arguably set as those of you having a hard time keeping up with me on certain points. My bad. My anxiety is through the roof right now, but powering through it because of this show right here and how awesome it is when it comes to this game being bowl and shoot ugly, Cole. The stats say enough for itself. The Vernon Adams Jr. shows up again with 451 passing yards. I mean, he goes video game every week. What's up with this? I mean, he did have 2 interceptions, which is what humanized him a little bit. But between that, the 4 carries for 39 yards and a rushing touchdown kind of bounces out for his 1 for 2 on touchdowns to interception ratio. And William Stanback, he had the worst game of his year, and they still won by 15 points because that stat is right. He had 12 carries for 14 yards. I mean, that's how terrible he was on rushing for that day. I mean, Ryan McCarthy can definitely back us up on it with how little production he had on the ground in this game. But looking at this overall production and the stats, I'll let you cover the rest of the stat line if you want to. What are your thoughts when it comes to this 15-point victory for the BC Lions?
I will put it to you like this. I think the reason why I saw that this would be a good place for the Rough Riders to have their first loss of the year was I did not know if their defense could take that Lions offense, put them off the field long enough for that Rough Riders offense to score, considering they have their backup quarterback in, which he threw for 278 yards, which is pretty good. He did give you an INT, but he didn't give you a touchdown. And he gave you 14 yards on the ground, 5 carries, but still, I did not think the Rough Riders offense would be strong enough to offset the firepower that is the BC Lions. Now, I'll give the Rough Riders defense credit, which I figured they would still come in and do some things. They did. 4 sacks and 2 INTs. I love their defense. I love the Rough Riders defense. To me, I think that's the better side of their team if you go offense defense. Their defense is really strong. Even with their starting QB, which he's pretty good, I don't think their offense is as strong as their defense. I'll put it this way. If their starting quarterback is in, their offense is good, their defense is great. Unfortunately, their defense was, I won't say great, but the defense was good enough. But their offense is average at best, and it put the defense in very bad positions, very uncompromising positions. And the only thing they can hang their hat on was they stopped the running game. But that's really huge cold comfort when you have a QB that goes for over 450 yards in the air, and almost 250 of that goes to one receiver. So I was saying this was the perfect time for the Roughriders to get the loss. Not that I was rooting for it, but I was saying that the Lions, they would be in Vancouver, they'd be playing at home. It looks like Vernon Adams Jr. can't do anything wrong in the pocket. Although, yes, he did throw over two interceptions in this game. Thankfully, it did not come to bite them. I just felt the Lions were a little bit better and they're more whole and healthy against the team, the Roughriders. They're coming into Vancouver dinged up already. So I saw a huge disadvantage there.
You're absolutely right. I mean, I think your comparison between the offense and the defense was spot on. Between, the one team's got a great offense, suspect defense, but you just went up against a team that has a greater offense and an even better defense. So they're more balanced overall with basically what you're saying. So they made up a really good challenge this year. They've had some other challenges outside of not facing the Alouettes yet and not facing the BC Lions. So the Saskatchewan Roughriders had their first big challenge and they failed. And you could blame me. You could say I'm the one that had the karma over the past few weeks because I've been hyping them up so much hype for this team because of their cool uniforms, because their cool entrance, because their cool name. Okay, where they're Saskatchewan. I mean, that's a cool name of city where you're coming from. So thinking about that, thinking about the production they've had, I don't think they're going to completely fall off the face of the earth.
No,
like they've done in several years, because they've been 6-12 like the past couple of years, something like that we talked about earlier this year. So thinking about all of that, about how all that can come into fruition, if this can either be a bounce back game or it can be a downfall game for the set of the rest of the year, which we'll talk about more later in the show. But for now, though, I think that they finally met someone of level competition. It's only a matter of time before this happened and they get humbled, and that's what happened in this game this past weekend. Time for that to happen. And now for our next game of the week, a game that actually flirted with game of the week here. Like I almost put it as game of the week. As I was finishing up the slate this morning, Ryan McCarthy hit me up, and his suggestion was better than mine. Even though this game, had these two teams not been dumpster Pelican-like teams this season, this would have been a great game for game of the week, as it ended in a end of regulation kicking a field goal. So 3 points ended in on a field goal at the end of regulation. That's games that you and I picked all last season for NFL and even UFL games. Our game of the week was based on, how it went throughout, but also how it ended, which like the tiebreaker. And this was a decisive factor all year round. When you look at this team right here, when you look at the Ottawa Redblacks taking on the Edmonton Elks in a 37-34 victory, what are your biggest standouts in this game that we saw yesterday?
Well, both quarterbacks came to play. There's no question about that. And I didn't have to see the final score to decipher that. It was either the quarterbacks came to play or the running backs came to play. And although the Elks look like they're continuing on a better trajectory running, not as good as it was last week, but I could take it. 86 yards on 18 carries. The Redblacks, to me, now I'm starting to see a disturbing trend. Their running game is not coming up to par. It just isn't there yet. It needs to get there if they're going to actually compete against the Alouettes, the Lions, and the Roughriders. They have to be better on the ground. But hey, if you're going to get 480 passing yards out of Drew Brown and 2 touchdowns, although he did throw a pick, you can't really complain. I mean,
look at the stats from last week; they were terrible in comparison. Like he really stepped it up.
Yeah,
I mean,
it was opposite. It was opposite, right? And kudos to Justin Hardy and Jalen Ackland, both of them over 100 receiving yards and each a touchdown. So so this was a decent game, for all overall for the Redblacks. Except I just don't like the running game. It should be better. I'm liking the attempts. I want the attempts to be more too, but somehow they got to find a way to help the QB out in the running game. And if they could do that, I think they'll be better. 3 sacks on the defensive end. I like that too. And of course, look, you get 5 field goals out of your field goal unit. Yeah, again, good day. It could have been better. and it's more along the lines of containment on defense for the Redblacks and the running game. But for the Elks, man, this is a tough way to take an L. I mean, you have Bethel Thompson. He gets you 2 touchdowns, almost gives you 300 yards, 272 yards in the air. You had really good game on the ground. I want to see that attempts go up a little though. Give me about 25. And if they had 25, that would have been over 100 yards. Give me that. Kudos to to Gino Lewis and Hergy Malaya. I mean, Malila.
Said better than me last week.
Yeah, Hergy Malaya. Each of them sniffed almost 90 yards each. Malaya got you a touchdown. If the Elks lost this game, they lost it on defense. 1 sack and 1 interception. Although Cordell Jackson's getting some looks with picks. They got to find a way to stop the other team. They got to find a way to do something. Put more pressure on the QB. They did decent in stopping the run, or at least they slowed it down. But they got to, on defense, find a way to at least get that 1 or 2 more plays so you can help that offense out. Because offense, they've had two games where they've actually had pretty good turnouts, but the D just couldn't give you that one stop they need to get that W. But good game overall. Just the Redblacks, to me, the Redblacks running game and the Elks defense as a whole. I'll simplify it. The Elks pass rushing. I would love to see improvement on both sides there.
I was wondering if like the Redblacks were thinking they were in the wrong league, like they were a part of the UFL, like some type of kayfabe injury that we saw last week from Drew Brown when he had those lackluster numbers that we saw last week. I mean, I pulled it up just to remind the people, like he went out there last week and threw 24 passing yards total for the game. Didn't do anything else. The QB2 came in here and was terrible. He actually turned the ball over more than what he had done in previous weeks. So I think that they lit a fire up under him. There was a kayfabe injury last week, which is what he got benched for. And had the other quarterback came in there and pulled like a Tom Brady or something, led them on this, like, a victory or a winning streak or something like that, he wouldn't have saw the field on this game to have this bounce back game like he had and lead them to a victory. So he needs to count his lucky stars that his backup didn't play that well either last week. Equally was terrible as him, to the point to where now we don't have this quarterback controversy that we could be talking about, because when you see numbers like last week, like, and you see the quarterback, the QB2 go in there and get even more, reps than the previous quarterback, as he had been struggling for several weeks until that point.
Right.
This is something we got to look at here, as this could have been going one way, but it shifted back to plan A, because plan A got his game back, figured out how to play the game of football again, and not just throw like I think it was like 2 of 9 or 2 of 10 or so. It was terrible numbers last week. I don't know the completion percentage off the top of my head, but I know the slate has the yardage in there. So looking at that here and balancing, putting the checks and balances on all equations of this analytical part of this quarterback position, I have to think right here, and I have to think long and hard about the fact that I think that we just dodged a bullet when it comes to a quarterback change, and one that could have worsened this team rather than help it, and going back to the original plan at quarterback. My bad. I hope I didn't cut you off on what you were saying.
No. I was going to say that's a good point. I was just thinking about a situation in the NFL 3 decades ago where the Houston Oilers, who used to be Houston Oilers, they were 1-4. They decided to pull Warren Moon for Cody Carlson. He did good for a half, then he gets injured, and then Moon gets put back in, and then they go on an 11-game winning streak. So you got to be careful when it comes to changing QBs. And I agree with you. I think they dodged a bullet because they got the right guy in. He just needs to play, maybe not like this, but he needs to play more consistently to help the team out.
Yeah, because I mean, you're not going to keep getting victories like the way you just had. You can't rely on having. He threw for
480 yards.
80 yards, and they needed a field goal to win the game against a team that hadn't won a game yet. That's bad. So that's still bad. You still have holes in the defense you need to plug. That's where it seems like they're having their biggest struggles is when they don't have consistent play out of their quarterback, they're going to lose regardless. But you can't keep having games like this to where your quarterback and your kicker show up, but your defense absolutely is terrible and gives it 34 points every game. It's not going to work out.
No.
So, but luckily that was not our game of the week because now it's time to take it to our fan voted game of the week this week. That game of the week is the action between a contest that we saw on Friday. There's actually a game we skipped over to get to here because the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, Cole, are on a 2-game winning streak finally. Like they finally won last week. They won this week. After losing 4 consecutive games, Zach Colaro steps up with 344 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, along with Brady Oliverios. If I said that right, I might be wrong, but who knows? 15 carries, 109 yards on the day, along with 13 receptions for 201 yards and a touchdown by Ontario Wilson. Nick Dembski keeping his streak alive with consecutive games with touchdowns now. I believe it's 3 or 4 games on the streak for touchdowns he has, as he had 7 receptions for 60 yards in this game. Look at the Blue Bombers defense. They didn't really do so much except for they had 2 interceptions, along with their kicker Sergio Castillo staying alive with 4 of 4 on field goals for 57 yards. Looking at the lackluster production from the Stampeders based on the fact that their quarterback threw 2 interceptions to hand the game over to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. What do you say about the Stampeders going forward after week 6?
Stampeders did what I thought it was going to do. I had thought they was going to have issues. I figured it was going to trip up. I don't think they took the Blue Bombers lightly. It just looks like they don't have what it takes to be consistent week after week. And look, they do have a lot of pluses here. For the exception of the 2 picks, your QB threw for over 300 yards. You had your running back give you over 100 yards on only 15 carries. I will take that offensively every day of the week and twice on Sunday, because it's showing me that the offense all the way around is into the game, and I like that. I like that the big uglies up front, they're protected QB and they're giving holes and making holes for the running back. And when your offensive line can dominate like that, you have the potential to actually dominate games. The problem, though, is you need to have more contributions defensively. Yes, I know they got you 2 sacks, and they got and you had Trey Robinson give you two INTs. Still, though, I'll continue to say this until the cows come home. If the offense scores more than 20 points, if the defense allows more than 20, that game's on the defense. And the Stampeders put up 37. This L is on the Stampeders defense because they got to come up with stops. It's just that simple. You can't have a QB, especially one that that's only won a game, throw for almost 350 yards, and give you 2 touchdowns. You can't allow a 100-yard ball carrier, and you can't allow a guy to catch a ball for 200 yards. I mean, to me, that is where it is for me. The Stampeders offensively gave you enough points to win, but your defense did not show up. It's just that cut and dry, that simple. But I will give the Blue Bombers credit. Now they're on a 2-game winning streak. I think that bye helped them out, and now they seem to have more and more confidence and balanced offense. I'm loving that too. Balanced offense. Yes, 2 turnovers for Colorados, but still, I could take 344 yards in the air, 109 yards with Oliveira on the ground. I could take that. I like that. Now, I would like to see the Blue Bombers be a little bit more active defensively. I want that pass rush to be there, and that secondary cannot be sieves. They got away with it because you had Castillo give you 4 field goals. But they are on a 2-game winning streak. It looks like they have confidence, and they're not going to be playing spoiling anymore. They actually could play a role as they're going down. Now, I'm not saying that they're going to be just as good as the Alouettes or the Roughriders or the Lions. No, but they do have a shot, though, to actually be a playoff contender. If they keep this up, I think they could.
I look forward to seeing if they can do that, because the only reason why this game is the game of the week is not more so for what happened in the game. It's the fact that you started the season 0-4 and you're now got a 2-game winning streak, and you did it by scoring more points than another team who you gave up a lot of points to that you should have gave up that amount of points and lost the game to. So there's different factors that sway the decision in this, but because of what Ryan said in a text message this morning, I was like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and take your advice. I'm going to go ahead and switch this up for the game of the week and give it to this team. They got the victory after 4 straight losses and then coming into 2 straight wins. I mean, it's definitely a great pickup for this team, a good motivational piece here. We got some love in the chat going on right now.
What's up, man?
Saying, Total Football Talk. Hey, what's up, my brothers? Well, hey, what's up there to you there, my man?
Good to see you, man. Good to see you.
Good to see you in the chat zone this morning, as well as, get to check out Shooting Lights Out, because my schedule's a little jacked up, and with some other things that have thrown me off a little bit today, I was paying attention and not taking a nap. So, yeah, like my whole day's shot right now. We'll talk about that off the air. But when it comes to this right now, when it comes to the next comment, I'll let you read this one because this is for you there, Cole.
Playmaker says, I need that bowling shoe ugly graphic. Oh, you mean you need this one right here? All right. Fashion that for you, sir. If you like that, okay, cool. So you like that graphic. I likes that Playmaker. All right.
Just make sure, for infringement purposes, you give credit to Cole and Total Football Talk when you do that there. You play. You got to. Just like I give when we go off the rails, it's still credit Snowman in the morning, even though he probably haven't played in a long time, but that was still where I saw it from. That was the birth of it. So I took it from there. Asked Cole if we could use it. We did. So that's where I saw it first, is where it lives on from into this project. So that's what we gotta say. Honor the Snowman. You honor us with that. But
that's right.
Let's let you read this one too, because of how hot it is in VA. You can put the drama behind it when it comes to the way he worded this.
All right, no problem. Hey, Dante, good to see you, man. He says, what's up, guys? I heard now I could be wrong, but if we get 1 million subscribers and likes, Mother Nature will turn the thermostat down. I can't be wrong. Hey, I'd be all for it.
Yeah, because it's 98 today in Virginia, and the humidity feels like it's 118. Like, it's that bad. Like, I went outside to get something out of my car, and I came back. I still haven't recovered. I'm still sweating from that. Was like almost an hour ago, and I'm still sweating. And I got AC on. It's bad. So yeah, I might have checked during the commercial break, make sure that window's not cracked. It could be it too. Do what?
Well, they thought it was going to be 100 here, but it only went up to 96. So yeah.
I still feel your pain, even though it's not quite as hot. You're still flirting with disaster too.
It's not quite as hot. Yeah, it's not quite as hot.
Your humidity, you know about the humidity difference in Virginia than probably Texas too. Nashville, Tennessee, that area.
Yeah.
I bet you don't have as much humid and dry, like choking you in the neck. Like it's wild. I don't get it.
The humidity in Virginia is much worse than here. Yeah, and I've lived in Virginia, so I know.
Yes, and between that and the ugliness with the weather and the ugliness in college football, we will see some definitely ugly games this year, Playmaker. We're going to see some wildness, and hopefully we don't see Colorado regress. So hopefully we see them improve, so we don't have to hear about all the hype on the ESPN and stuff like that about how great they are and they suck again. Like, I don't want to hear that anymore. That would not be fun. But,
yeah.
But no, guys, we've gone through the 4 games of this past week. We're going to do a preview and answering some questions and stuff as we go through the rest of the show. But we're taking our first of 3 commercial breaks to give me a little bit of a break today and a little bit of a recovery and an effort for other things, as you will know here later. But other than that, we'll take it to the first commercial break.
All right, let's go. We got trips, right? At 42, 989 on 2. Ready? Break.
We're just getting started. Total Football Talk will return right after this. Whether it's news, The largest egg producer finds bird flu in chickens at a Texas plant. Weather. Devastating tornadoes rip through the heart of the United States. Inspiration. A breast cancer survivor completed the journey of chemotherapy and now begins a future one of matrimony or sports. Michael Jordan is shown on a photo with Diddy. LeBron James has a video extolling the virtues of a Diddy party. This has been yet another beating a dead horse presentation. We got you covered. BS3 Network, in association with Comey Media Incorporated, proudly present The Morning Shift with Cole Johnson. Live every weekday at 8 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Central. Hey, Eagles fan. Join my man Cool McCain and a host of others as they break down every single game, every single week in an objective manner, and also from a fan's perspective as well. Remember, this cast feels just like you. Nobody likes you. And you don't care. Fly, Eagles, fly. Eagles Elite Podcast. Every Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern on YouTube and other podcast outlets.
Everything Boston. I love you morons. New Kids on the Block, New Edition.
Dear whatever the law firm is. Sincerely, the U.S. Supreme Court.
Ben Affleck, Matt Damon. Go yourself again, Jason Whitlock.
Welcome back to Total Football Talk, your source for hard-hitting gridiron action. Speaking of hard-hitting comments that were made this past weekend, we got to go back to this whole situation with Jerry Rice here shortly and his threatening of some reporters out there in those fields, not streams, but actually in real life. It wasn't like words exchanged on a debate show or anything. It was like right here, right now, live. But over the weekend at a golf tournament where you got asked a question, and it didn't really go the right way. But based on that, we'll get to that here shortly when we get to that topic. But with that being said, we have to take it to the Gridiron Scoop. With the Scoop, I mean, we do have some things to talk about here, but that will be for a later part in the show. When it comes to something we talked about last week, the unexpected passing of Vikings cornerback Kyrie Jackson. Yeah. Apparently, there was a $25K reward offered in a deadly shooting at his vigil of that player himself, Kyrie Jackson. Will they find who is responsible for this thoughtless crime, Cole? Is there any updates that you know of yet? Or how can things like this be prevented around the country moving forward? Because we just saw not just this, but some political stuff you got into in your show this morning with a shooting. Like, what can we do to stop all this violence when it comes to this stuff? Like, let the people grieve in peace.
It's just a simple case of people have to understand that it goes to the old school REM song, Everybody Hurts. And you have to understand that, you may see somebody smiling and you may want to punch the teeth of that person that's smiling. But you got to understand, with many people, probably with everybody in certain cases, underneath that smile, there's some pain. Either they're masking or they're trying to just ignore. So just because they're not showing they're in pain, they pretty much are. And you have to show empathy. And seemingly to me, the last few decades that I've been on this earth, I've been seeing less and less empathy. And if you have more empathy toward people, then you will have the continuity and the unity that really we all really seek to have, because we don't want to be animals. We don't want to just go out and just slit throats of people and just shoot people to pieces. I mean, unfortunately, those who actually think that way, they really still are outliers. They still are. You may see more and more of them, and we may hear more and more accounts of these people, but they're still outliers. The average person, and definitely the average American, they want peace. They want peace in their home, they want peace around their home, and they want peace at their work, and they want peace with their family, and they want peace with their friends. They don't want to have this type of energy where you have to look around. Well, to borrow mind blank tricks on me by Ghetto Boys, they don't want to look over their shoulders and peep around corners. You know, they don't want that. You know, they want that. I'm loving life. I'm enjoying this. And they want to walk in that freedom and walk in that joy. And we should give forth that energy to others, because they need to see that they need to walk in that joy too. So if we exhibit that, I think we'll have more of it. And that's the only way I think you can prevent having the violence that we've been seeing ratchet up, unfortunately, this past couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably somebody who was in a bad standing with whoever was shooting, I would say. That would be my guess. But it's just like when you see in old crime movies or like The Sopranos or whatever, it's like the cops wait to bust them till after the funeral's over. So at least you should take that sentiment and do the same when if you're even though I'm not condoning what happened by all events, but it's like, no, put the weapons aside. That I'm getting tired of seeing all this like the weapons crime out here with guns. Like, there needs to be better gun control for one.
100.
But why can't we go back to like 50, 60 years ago before they were so harsh on fighting? Where why can't you just put up your fist and duke it out, like outside the funeral, in a more private setting? You know, fight to whoever can't move. You know, you have to pay for your sin or whatever somehow, some way. But that's how the things used to go back in the day, and we had a lot less problems. We had a lot more empathy, a lot more sympathy, a lot more love for out here one another. When it seems like that, when things got handled the old-fashioned way, when it came to that, now people are too many snowflakes to where they want to grab some type of weapon because they see, like, you know, Grand Theft Auto, you can do it on there, and there's no repercussions because you can outrun the cops. Well, I'm sorry, as we've learned in several events now between this and now with something else you talked about earlier this morning, you can't just outrun it. Like, you're pretty much, that's end game, because you're gonna take a shot, and whether you miss or you hit him, you're going down if they catch you. Like in a drive-by shooting, it's a little bit different, but in the other setting, he was like a target. He put a target on himself when he's climbing that building there. But I'll let you handle that, because I don't talk political stuff and I'm not gonna talk about it on sports. But it's basically just to show like how screwed up our world has been in the past week since we were last on the air. Like, of course, some of us can experience some good things out there. Some of us can experience some stress to throw us off for a day. But when it's something like this can throw you off for your entire life. When you lose a loved one to gun violence that's not necessary, despite any type of argument that I've heard for what their argument was, which is why they try to validate what they did. There's nothing I've ever heard in any gun violence situation ever where it was justifiable to have this type of outcome, especially when you're mourning a situation that was an accident. It had nothing to do. It wasn't like the cornerback was in part of a gang, like, you know, some other mentioned players who used to be tight ends for the Patriots back in the day will say, okay. And something like that would be retaliatory if like his car accident wasn't like, if it was like, you know, staged or something, which they could be covering something up for all we know. This could be something else, at least a conspiracy theory at this point, because of what happened and where. But I still don't condone it. I think it was out of line. I think that they should have handled it a different way if they had some beef with whoever was attending the funeral and done it the old-fashioned way. Even if you get a charge for assault, it's still better than shooting someone and killing them. You know, that's, you know, you can do life for that. You can't do life for an assault charge. You can do a couple of years, but not life. Yeah,
I mean, it goes like what you said, man. I always think about Pops in Friday, where he pulled Craig aside after he wanted to wield a gun. He's like, "Oh, what are you doing with that piece?" No, man. No. I want you to come back home safe, because this is how we used to do it back in the days. It's like, look, you may think that you can probably not take whoever's against you, but we just put up these. We put up these. And quite frankly, you win some and you lose some. But the thing is, you live to fight another day. And that's the thing that's the thing seemingly that this society is missing. We seem to think that we are bulletproof for real. And when they learn that the bullets have no names, and it's just too late when they learn it because they're dead. That you have to understand that life is precious. And yeah, you can have the anger to where you just want to lash out, but at least live to the next day so you can either avenge the L, and now I'm not saying go back and beat the person down that you took the L to, unless you have the opportunity to. But no, avenge the L by living a better life, or grow from the anger and understand, okay, well, maybe I don't need to take my top off and blow it up that bad. But learn the lessons from what life can offer you, because you only have one.
Yes. So, yes. Yeah, you definitely have to play your cards right, because if you're gone, you're out. And it hasn't been proven yet that there's such thing as reincarnation, even though some religions tell you that there is. Like, it depends on what you believe in, and I don't want to judge anybody for their beliefs, but if there is such thing as reincarnation, and I believe it only really happens to those of us who made the best of what we had the first time. So, like, if you are going out there by killing somebody else, you're going to come back as a mosquito or a wasp or something. Like, you're not going to come back as a person for centuries if you ever get another chance, because you screwed up that one opportunity that bad. If this is a situation where we're talking about religion, and you get more than one chance if you do it right the first time around. Well, in this case, for this person, whoever shot the person at the funeral, you are definitely not going to get another chance if that is the case. But we don't truly know until the lights cut out on us at the end of the day for good, and then we see if there is another side or if we're just gone. But we are not a spiritual show either. So I will not dance around that topic today, as I'm feeling like this panic attack is starting to wear off a little bit out here in these streams. I'm trying to be as tough as these people out here on this gridiron field for you today, my people out here on this Monday. So for that, I will continue healing myself by letting Cole read these next two comments from our people right here.
All right. Well, Playmaker, he says, well, in that case, Drew, wait till bearing down the gridiron returns, which that will be sometime in August. It was going to be later in July, but it's going to be next month. So yeah, bearing down the gridiron, that is basically for college football talk.
Don't tease me with a good football show now. I'm gonna tune in.
Well, he will also return in August too with Ramley Talk. He's a Rams fan. So he has his football stuff returning next month. My brother has his football stuff in terms of Commander's Gridiron Report returning back tomorrow. So you have that.
Well, I'm hyped.
You should.
I'm double duty tasking right now just to survive this moment and live in it, for one. But underneath all this composing myself is a really excited person to get this done and bring you some things that we hadn't had a chance to talk about in 3 months. So more football beyond the day. Actually, tonight we'll talk about more football tonight on episode 115. So we will see a lot of football action from my mouth coming out of it in the next 17, 18 hours. So there you go.
Mm-hmm. Well, you'll be talking a lot of football tonight.
Oh yeah, and especially in different leagues too, which I'm excited about that too. But when it comes to this next one, Dante brings out a good one here too.
At the end of the day, people are so emotional and wear it on their sleeve, and they don't understand the consequences of their actions. 100, Dante.
Yeah,
that's the problem right there.
There's good and bad versions of that. I mean, you got the bad version where you wear your emotions on your sleeve, and you might have some mixed up beliefs and the way you're brought up, or however you've been exposed to things out here in the streets, and it screws you up to where the mind is a fragile place. I mean, you can come from a great home, you can get mixed up with some things, and just completely do a 180 as a person, and then fall into a bad crowd. Okay, that's one. Or you can be like of some of us who, like myself, who tend to do that at times, where when it comes to wear my emotions of your sleeve, just be a little bit quick at the mouth and pop off sometimes. But those who really truly know you, if that's your one of your flaws that you have, know you're coming from a good, genuine place. You're just trying to help. So there's different categories to this when it comes to wearing your emotions on your sleeve. But when it comes to people who live the street life, who wear their emotions on their sleeves, who have access to weapons they shouldn't have access to on a regular basis, when you have that problem, like I acknowledge that I wear my emotions on my sleeve sometimes when it comes to popping off of the mouth. That doesn't mean I have a gun on my hip when I'm talking about it, because what's the point? What does that do? It just sets you up for failure if you're walking around with a gun all the time. A gun's for protection, to have in a safe place that you know in a moment you got to use it, not to drive around and have in your passenger seat and just ride around to go to McDonald's, have a gun and then stir up stuff. Like that's not that type of wearing your emotion on your sleeve is bad. Okay.
Very.
Like when you actually are doing it for a good cause to maybe help other people out and get your point across, that type of emotion on your sleeve is okay in my opinion, because there's good and bad to it, but usually you can overcome a bad situation when it comes to wearing your emotion on your sleeve when it comes to verbal mistakes. But when it comes to physical or life altering mistakes as a result of it, you can never take that back. So you can always mend fences if something gets taken out of line with wearing your emotions on your sleeve as a person in your actions verbally. But when it comes to physically, whether it's a physical beatdown, whether it is a gun violence out here in these streets, you can never take that back. So I just want to make sure I compartmentalize the two, and there's more compartmentalization besides those two. Then it's just a good example I can give you as to how to separate the one from the other, so people don't get confused with what you said though at the same time. So, but well, Drew, you can expect Cole Johnson to continue his battle with the NCAA. Why do you think we didn't have a show that covered college football?
Thank the Lord.
Yes, because I threw it out there at just the beginning, and then I was reminded real quick about Cole's hatred for the NCAA and how he does not want to cover it. So I will never push that envelope again. That's one and done, my man.
Look, I love the action. It's just the people who are running it are absolutely clueless. And if I go into it, I would derail every single show. So that's why I'm glad I don't do a college football show.
So you would be like, you wouldn't even be putting on the front like you do for okay. You would just be like in that straight like hatred mode towards everything that it stands for while discussing it. It would be tough for you to separate the two.
It would be. It would be. And the reason why I can do this with Yo Kang is
yes,
I get the opportunity to actually poke fun, and I actually created characters to actually show the other side how ridiculous they look. It's hard for me to come up looking like an NCAA person in Indianapolis and how ridiculous they look and how greedy they are. It's very difficult to do that. So yeah, I couldn't do it. I could try, but it would be difficult. And you all be like, good Lord, I thought Cole was a calm, mild-mannered person.
I've been told that my Yo Kang is getting better each week when I'm at 100%, but I still have a lot of work to do to catch up to you, and I don't think I ever will. But to be mentioned in a similar category as like a subcategory of your category, but not like too far left or right, in the middle there. I appreciate it's a big compliment for me, so I'll take that whenever I can get it.
Yeah, well, good. Well, I'm happy that you got that compliment.
Next week I will never make this mistake again. You already know off the books what it is. I will never make it again, and I will be ready to say Yo Kang the right way next week, because I'm just not feeling it right now. But you are. You're never down and out when it comes to your Yo Kangs. So I had to give you the opportunity to say it at least once.
And he says, see, on Bearing Down the Gridiron, Cole has the space to unleash. Well, that's true. I do.
You've rather the space to unleash.
And he provides Cole's the spaces to unleash. Yeah, he does.
Cole's unleashed on this show, too. That's why we have 46 consecutive weeks of it.
Yeah, it's just I have some different things to say about the NFL, and I get a chance to, and you'll get a chance to hear a little bit of the NFL stuff that I'll be kicking off and unleashing later on this episode too.
Okay, I'm glad that brought some fire for you to do that, because I've been ready. Been ready for you to bring it today, because we got more topics at bay when it comes to what we have next. Carried on with the Gridiron Scoop. This one I thought would be interesting to put in here, as it was the one I was stumped on this morning to put an additional topic in. But Multiple NFL teams have made blockbuster trades that seemed genius at the time, but failed miserably. Out of the 3 that happened since the year 2020, which team will you continue to be affected negatively between those 3 teams, between the Broncos, the Browns, and the Seahawks 2024 to tip you off a little bit? But when it comes to that, what are the which team do you think is going to get affected the most? I'll give you
Affected positively or negatively?
negatively. Like we're still having the lingering effects from the trade within the past 4 years. Which one of these 3 teams between the trades they made? You know, for the 2 quarterbacks, for the one the
Right,
the Seahawks got for the Jets.
Mhm.
You know, looking at that, what do you think?
Right. I'm leaning toward the Seahawks. I'm leaning there. And the reason why I'm like is the Broncos. I think they're going to suffer, but I think they're going to suffer worse. Not necessarily because they only had a 1 year, a very short experiment called Russell Wilson. But I think Sean Payton is going to run the team down further, because I don't think he has what it takes to actually put the Broncos back into contention like he did with the Saints, because I don't think he has stumbled upon his Drew Brees of this era. But just in trade stuff alone, I would say Seahawks, because it looks like some of those draft picks have not panned out yet for them. So I'm not a huge fan of the team. Not saying that I hate them. So, Mickey, when you hear this, it's not I hate the Seahawks. I'm not coming at it from that standpoint. I'm coming at it from the standpoint of if I see the 53-man roster, do I really like how they are 1 to 53? And the answer is no. I don't really like what I'm seeing. And I think you saw a little bit of I think we may have overreached and made a mistake by getting Wagner back on the team. So I think the Browns remain unscathed. Although now you got to have Deshaun Watson actually show up. I mean, because they were blessed, and I do mean blessed, to have Joe Flacco show what he showed. Basically eating hot dogs on a Friday and then throwing for almost 300 yards on a Sunday and winning a game, and bringing them to an 11-win season. And they have and Stefanski, Kevin Stefanski, head coach of the team, has Flacco to thank for that second Coach of the Year award he received. They narrowly escape because I think they got a lot of other free agent moves that worked more on the defensive end than the offensive end, and they drafted well defensively. But yeah, of all the 3 teams being negatively affected by those blockbuster trades, to me, it's the Seahawks. Barely over the Broncos.
It's kind of like a side question with that, but do you think it's safe to say that had Deshaun Watson played the entire year last year and done some of the things that Joe Flacco did, that he would have got the Comeback Player of the Year award and not Joe Flacco?
If he were to have done similar things, yes. Yeah, he would have. Now, do I think he would have done those similar things? I really don't think he would have. And I'm not saying that Deshaun Watson is horrible. So, Cleveland Browns fan, don't think that I'm saying that. I know I saw him up close and personal as the Texans QB, so I know what he can do. I know what his makeup is. But the man was dinged up, and he was coming off of sitting for 2 years. So, yeah, I know Flacco sat for a minute too, but Watson just didn't have the grasp of the team yet. And I think even during the season, he still didn't really have the grasp of the team. He still didn't really have the pulse of it. And I think he did not have the trust of the team yet. Even with the comeback victory they had in Baltimore, I still don't think he had the team yet. If he went onward, he probably could have, but he was injured, so he wasn't going to.
Yeah, I mean, even Mick is on top of his game. He didn't take what you said against him because he shared the show anyway. So I appreciate you for doing that, Mick, and definitely Cole does too on that as well.
Yeah. Look, and he says he thinks they're not going to be good this year. The problem I have with that, Mick. So you had the energy of the comeback player of the year before energy with Geno Smith, and I think the Seahawks brain trust thought, okay, well, we can run it back with mostly the same team. We could probably retool a couple of areas, and of course they were fortunate enough to say bye bye to Russell Wilson and get some stuff back. But so you had this comeback player of the year before, and they went to the playoffs, although they didn't have the best of showings in the wild card round. Took that L to the 49ers. They figured they would have that same type of energy this year. Oh, I should say last year, I should say. And they almost had the same record. They just didn't have the same type of success. And it was like they took a step back. And I think it might take another step back. And it's not going to be for lack of trying. I think it's just going to be for lack of talent. And it's unfortunate because I think if they had better talent, they could compete with the Rams for a wild card spot or at least second place in the NFC West. I just don't see it.
I see something to Mick, though. I will say this. I will say that I see that you got a new quarterback in your locker room, and he is probably creating a mutiny right now against Geno Smith saying this. And getting them all on the same page as him by acting goofy, looking goofy, and getting them ready to be his protection as he will be the QB1 at some point this year.
Now, the saving grace would be that right there, and you don't have Pete Carroll on the sideline, so there you go.
Yeah, but did you really upgrade a head coach though at the same time?
No.
Yeah, that's where I feel like they could have made a better choice than what they did. I don't agree with that head coaching hire. They've been better off keeping Pete Carroll, to be honest.
I would say the same.
I mean, at least he had built respect within the locker room. He just wasn't getting the best out of him, but he had built respect out of him though at the same time.
Yeah.
But the Hawks have a new coach. I mean, yes, we just talked about that there, Mick. I mean, you tell us in the comments if you disagree with us, if you feel like he's going to be a really good coach, feel like he's a better choice than Pete Carroll, because both Cole and I disagree with that. We don't feel like they made a good choice at head coach. They've been better off sticking with Pete Carroll for another year because he was still under contract for another year.
Mm-hmm.
Get your money's worth out of him, at least having him run the team in the next year during the 2025 offseason. You get a head coach that's available that might not be around with another team that much longer to get fired during the middle of the year this year, where their second or third opportunity with a new team could be just the right fit with your team based on the roster you have assembled already. So we've seen it happen before. All it takes is a new coach, and next year they're making a playoff run. I don't recall a team making a head coaching change and then maybe Dick Vermeil. Was Dick Vermeil in his first year when he went with the Rams, or was there another coach that did it? I feel like there's one coach
that was his. I don't think that was his first year with the Rams when he won the Super Bowl.
John Gruden, was that his first year when he won with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers?
It was
because he was just traded. He played against his old team that he knew the entire playbooks. I mean, he had the advantage with that. But
it was his first year, and of course he inherited a team that was already knocking on the door. They just simply needed to have that push over the edge to get them from the NFC Championship game to the Super Bowl. So he inherited a team that actually was Super Bowl contender worthy. They just needed that extra oomph.
Yeah, for what it sounds like, Tony Dungy was like getting them all hyped. They were like their buddies, but John Gruden comes in and kind of PO'd them off, to where they're all angry and biting their kneecaps, kind of like what Dan Campbell's doing with the Detroit Lions now. It could have been a premonition for that.
Mm-hmm. Basically. Yeah, and I think that was the road Gruden took. Because, they didn't want to disappoint Dungy. And, that was the thing. The under Dungy, the Bucks didn't want to disappoint him. Under Gruden, they wanted to win in spite of him. They wanted to show him up and shut him up. That's what they wanted to do, and that's what Gruden wanted them to do and wanted them to think.
Because if Tony Dungy had, I'm not saying that he ever would, but if he had similar allegations to what John Gruden did to get him out of football, I don't feel like the players, his former staff, or anybody would turn on them as quick as they turn on John Gruden, because everybody was out for John Gruden when that happened. And then, goes to show that, the softer approach might not help motivate the team over the hump, but at the same time, you need to find a guy with a good balance of the two, because you can't do exactly what you did and take a team to the Super Bowl and win and be a Super Bowl winning coach, have this job at ESPN, then go back to coaching, and then like your true colors get leaked out after all this stuff you've built for multiple decades. It just kind of took a big old fat dump on it. Like he literally with that behavior and being stuck in old times and not like learning how to like be a real person out here in these streets. Like he literally took the big fat in a short period of time. A former linebacker comes in, and now they're a good team with a similar roster that you had together when they sucked. So putting it all in perspective, it's not necessarily what you have on the roster, so you have leading the ship. And that's why I disagree with you on this when it comes to that, Mick, if you're going to hype up this new head coach for the Hawks. I get it. We haven't really seen him in action yet. We got to give him a little bit more time to develop his game plan for this team. But I just don't have high hopes for this coach this year. He could have a rookie resurgence. He could have a rookie year of greatness as a head coach, but will he stay consistent? We'll have to see.
Well, I mean, Mike McDonald, he basically got the job because he had a great year, being at the helm of a really good defense in the Ravens last year. So a team that I don't think really needs the boost defensively, I don't know if that was the right move. I think they needed more of an offensive push than a defensive one.
And that's why a lot of teams nowadays, it's not as balanced as it used to be with defensive head coaches and offensive head coaches. Now it's more so evolved to where you got strictly mainly offensive head coaches, because all everybody wants to do is to score points. They don't really care about being able to stop them. They just want to be able to outscore them. Like that's what the football's turned into, be like this high scoring game contest that we think is terrible, but it's all based on the way that the leadership has changed, and football as we knew it from 20-30 years ago is not the same anymore. There's not as much work put into stopping them. They want to be able to live after the game and all that stuff, and be able to not have so much recurrent CTE and stuff. And a lot of that, you see a lot more in that come from either players that ran the ball or wide receivers that took shots. Like you see big CTE problems in them. But the big ones that we see CTE problems in with, like Junior Seau and others like that, they played the defensive side of the game. So when you think about that, I think we've seen more of our tragic side from defense, and that's why people have kind of backed off, which could have hurt Bill Belichick this past offseason when he was applying for jobs.
I think
he's got more of that old school mindset.
I think it did. And people know that he basically looks at offenses and frowns their nose up at them, because when he was with the Patriots, he basically was like, look, offense, you do what you do. I want to take care of the defense. That's just how he was. That's how he has been. I mean, that's how he was since he was the Browns head coach, let alone the 20-plus year run he had with the Patriots.
Absolutely. And I couldn't have said that any better if I tried even harder than I did. And sick. I'll let you read the sick and the Dantes, because we got to acknowledge them real quick before we go on to their next spot.
Here we go. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Well, good evening to you, Mr. Sig Dickey. He joins us from Norway. It's great to see you. He says, "What's good?" and sorry for being late. Well, hey, you're on time. That's all.
Yeah.
I'll put it like that. You're here. You're on time, my brother.
You're here while we're live, so you're on time. Exactly.
So he says, "What's good, Playmaker?" I will say the same. I hope everything is good with you. I know you're about an hour away from being on Monarchs of Wrestling with Cool McCain, so that'll be cool. Dante Hill says, yeah, but Dungy had Peyton, talking about Peyton Manning when he was with the Colts. It was only a matter of time before Peyton was going to win a Super Bowl. Yeah, of course it was a matter of time. I mean, he got to the Super Bowl with Jim Caldwell. So, yeah, of course.
But had he found his rhythm as a head coach before that, he would have more than just one Super Bowl in Tampa Bay. I would book it. They would have gotten more than one.
He would have.
Fell apart because John Gruden's head got too big after the Super Bowl, is what it looks like. And then they started losing talent to other places. And they kind of had like the closest thing to a Trent Dilfer quarterback and Brad Johnson that we saw that year. We haven't really seen since. So when I think about all that, like, you got a good point there, Dante, was saying that, he had Peyton. It was only a matter of time because Peyton actually got a better coach than Jim Mora, who's not up there crying and complaining about a certain particular time of the year that I thought we had it, but we don't. Oh no.
The playoffs? We're talking about playoffs. We're just trying to win a game. Yeah.
You did just like him too, so we weren't missing out on anything. But when it comes to that, we got Tony Dungy going to Peyton Manning. Of course, at some point they were going to win one, but then Tony Dungy wasn't around that long with the Indianapolis Colts. I mean, he was there 5 or 6 years and then retired abruptly in 2008. Like if it was even that long, it might have been 5 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's about right.
Because it was 2002, he went, So, he might have spent like 6 or 7 years, 6 or 7 seasons, because, I mean, the way the years overlap. But still, he did the best job he could. And still, to get one Super Bowl in a career is great because it's so hard to get to one. And if you got multiple ones, it just goes to show that you are that great of a team. And you're a great, leader if he's got multiple Super Bowl rings and multiple Super Bowl MVPs on top of it. Peyton Manning might have had some more help than he gave from all his entire career leading up to that point in that last year. But I feel like that was the football gods. If there is some that were paying him back the karma he deserved for all those years that he should have won other Super Bowls, but Tom Brady screwed him. Okay, for one, and then you had other teams that were on the comeuppance, like the Ravens in 2000. You had the Rams that went to 2 Super Bowls but lost one, and you had other teams.
The Steelers in 2005. Yeah.
Steelers 2005. And then, other teams that threw you curveballs throughout. And you still beat, even Peyton and Tony Dungy, they won that game, but it wasn't pretty. It was raining, if you remember. It was kind of a nasty, dismal game. And it was a low-scoring contest because of that. But it doesn't matter because scoreboard is scoreboard, and Peyton got it with Tony Dungy in that moment. So I'd say you brought up a good point there, Dante. Yeah. I appreciate it.
Yeah. But I agree more with you. I think Dungy would have had more than one Super Bowl ring because that Bucs team was ready to win a Super Bowl. They were.
Absolutely.
6 says after leaving Tampa Bay, Tony Dungy would be vindicated with a Super Bowl win. Yeah, and he was 2006.
Mm-hmm.
And he did it with, and his specialty was defense, and he did it with an overpowering offensive team, and the defense couldn't stop a cold running the game. Well, in the running game, and then their defense woke up, and they denied every single team in the running game. That was amazing turnaround in a short span. So whatever Dungy did in that time between the end of the regular season and the wild card round, I tip my cap to him, and I will always tip my cap to him.
Absolutely. I mean, he set history too when he won that Super Bowl as well. So definitely, he set the bar for everybody else who had to follow suit that might not be able to reach his level of greatness and his greatness of leadership, because it's definitely proven outside of the game that he still has ways to make an impact on these current players today with these interviews he's doing and the certain things he's doing to still stay part of the game. Like he's still being a great mentor to others. And it goes from somebody who rarely can be a decent player in the NFL like he was in the 70s and early 80s. Then transition over into coaching. Yeah. And he was a great team, the Steel Curtain of all. So think about that. And the fact that not many coaches are successful as players and coaches. Because we see it with Mike Vrabel. If he never gets another shot, we'll know the answer to that too. So you got to be a backup quarterback who spends more time on the bench learning what other people do to control the game from that side than actually playing to learn how to be a good coach, apparently. Because the greatest coaches, Bill Russell and NBA and other ones who've been player coaches, moved to full-time coaches, didn't really work out because I guess they were burnt out by that point for giving too much of the game at that point. That's I can come up with.
Yeah, I can see that. Oh, playmaker.
We'll go back to him in a second. But Dante said, with sticking with the Colts for a second, they drafted Bob Sanders. Smart man.
Agree.
Absolutely.
Agree.
He paid off in that Super Bowl too in 2006.
Yeah, he paid off big time and big dividends with that Super Bowl team. In fact, to me, Dwight Freeney included, he was the best defender on that team that year.
And most of their big time players from that, like, it's sad, like they all kind of, except for Peyton, who bounced back with his second, his next chapter in Denver, just about everybody from that Super Bowl, that victory that they had in 2006, didn't get to see any type of benefit from it. Like they got a ring, but they didn't it was like their peak of their playing career. Like they didn't really see any other echelon. They didn't get that echelon again like Peyton did a few years later with the Colts. Like some of them were still there by then, but Marvin Harrison was gone. I think Bob Sanders was already gone by then. I could be mistaken, but he was. I think 2010. He was gone.
I think
when they lost.
Yeah.
It was Pat McAfee's rookie year as a punter, but as far as thinking about like a lot of those core players that made a difference to get that first win for the Colts in Indianapolis under the Tony Dungy and Peyton Manning era. They couldn't recapture that because a lot of those players were either became free agents, took the money, go somewhere else, or they retired, or they were forced to retire because their skills are diminished.
Yeah, I mean that team went hardcore turnover. I mean, like you said, didn't recognize the team when they drafted Andrew Luck. They didn't even resemble that 2006 team by 2011.
No.
And I mean,
No.
that's only 5 years. And I mean, and they were so different. They were so different then.
I was so disgusted. I'm not even a Colts fan. I never wanted to see Curtis Painter in my life ever after that year. Like that was the worst year from any quarterback ever. Like, and the sad part was Curtis Painter had been there for several consecutive years with Peyton Manning. You would have thought he would have learned something. Like he obviously just got way too comfortable holding the clipboard and getting coffee or Gatorade for the players around him or whatever he was doing because he definitely wasn't paying attention to what Peyton was doing.
Yeah. Well, I guess what Jim Irsay wanted, he got. It's like, look, 2011 tank. Let's get that guy from Stanford, and we're gonna build around him. And there you go.
There he is.
And Playmaker, of course, for another hour, for another few minutes, he'll be chilling with us before he heads on to go to Monarchs of Wrestling with Cool. And of course, we're big wrestling fans, so we'll enjoy that. And after this wraps up, we'll probably head over there and watch a little bit of that too. So say hi to Cool for us, Playmaker.
I would definitely be playing on the phone and chilling to regain my composure if you're picking up what I'm throwing down. But when it comes to this right here, most of these teams want Sean McVay, but there's only one McVay.
The Wunderkind, I can actually say this now, sir. I will say this to you now. The Wunderkind, I feel a little better about him because I think he understood that he can't just chunk the ball in the air all the time. He actually was devoted to the running game last year, and it did my heart good to actually see him run the ball more. So I actually like Sean McVay. And the thing is, a lot of teams wanted a Sean McVay, especially forget the 2021 season, especially at that 2017 season, because they were thinking, well, wait a minute, this guy is only in his mid-30s. He seems to want to compete and have a team that can go deep in the playoffs. Yeah, we need to have a young guy like that, and it started that evolution of, like you said earlier, not just offense coordinators, but young offensive coordinators.
Definitely so. Teamwork makes the dream work, which is where we are still crushing it today because Cole is definitely, I feel it for you. I feel you picking it up my slack, so I appreciate you. That's why football is a team sport. We love it, and sometimes when somebody else can't produce but so much, can only give us so much, the other one steps up, still makes it happen. So that's why
you done it for me. So
I appreciate it because this will never happen again. But here we are today for episode 46. As we have another thing to get to before we get to our next commercial break, and that is one of my favorite parts of the week, besides the snowflake of the week, but it is the grand champ, the dog of the week.
Total football talk.
Where my dogs at? I can still bark a little bit. What's up? When it comes to the grand champ out here for the past week in football, I know it's not Jerry Rice for his pick, but it's going to be something way better than that. Who's your grand champ when it comes to the dog of the week there, my man?
All right, let me see. Who do I want to choose as the dog of the week? I would choose the whole Toronto Argonauts, but I'll refrain. I definitely could choose Vernon Adams Jr. because he's pulling Madden numbers. But I'll refrain. Drew Brown, I would select you, sir. I would. But I'm gonna have to ease up on that. I'm gonna have to go. Let me see. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go with I'll have to go with the Blue Bombers, the whole team, and the reason being,
Very good.
the reason being, my partner and my brother, he wanted to motivate this team to greatness, and they had a horrible performance earlier in the season, and he wanted them to pick up the slack. And the last 2 weeks they have, and the weeks before they were building up to picking up that slack. They are a much improved team, and I love what I'm seeing from them. And if they could continue onward, as I said, I'll say this again. I love it when you can have a 300-yard passer, a 100-yard rusher, and a 100-yard receiver in the same game. If you can have that,
Oh yeah.
if you can have that, I tip my hat to the offensive line because it means the big uglies are doing their job. The quarterback has time to throw. The running back has holes to go through. And that is what I love seeing. And if the Blue Bombers defensively can pick up that slack, I would love to see how far this team can go. So, look, I had to give it up to I had to give it to the Blue Bombers. They're my dogs. They received the grand champs this week from me.
That was a great pick because I was going to take a player from the Winnipeg Blue Bombers that made an impact in both of their victories the past 2 weeks, but I'm going to switch it up to somebody different just because the Blue Bombers, the team, kind of overshadows it, and I don't want to overshadow your pick with picking just a player from the team and making it sound better if it's anywhere possible to what could happen because you had great words with that. But looking at this, I was going to at least be honest with who I was going to choose. I was going to originally choose Brady Oliveira because if that's how you say his name, I think we both butchered his name this episode, but it's all good. When it comes to this right here, he had 129 yards last week and then 109 this week. So he's got back-to-back 100-yard games, and it's going to prove that when this team can actually run the ball effectively, you're going to get wins because that's what their problem was their first 4 weeks when they weren't getting any wins at all. So looking at that, that's who I was going to choose. But I'm going to choose a name that, I mean, you guys are probably getting tired of hearing by now because, I mean, let's just face it. This team is that good because of this quarterback. I'm going to give it to Vernon Adams Jr. probably for the 17th time in only like 8 tries. But it just feels like I've given him that many awards with this each week because each and every week we're talking about this guy. And, you know, at the same time, I don't want to diminish what he just did because we're talking about him every single week. I still want to give him his flowers because he deserves it because he is literally the CFL MVP right now, you guys. Like,
yes, he is.
If Cole agrees, like if you guys are actually, even if you're just watching the highlights, the comparison, the highlights between this quarterback and any other, there's second to none. There's nobody else that's as close to like a 1A or 1B comparison here. Like it's what he's doing that is helping this BC Lions team get wins, and especially against teams that I may have overhyped last week because I was excited for this opportunity for them to play a really good team and have the competition. And I was deflated a little bit. I'll be honest. I still like the team. I still like their name. I don't like what happened, but sometimes you need a tough loss in order to humble you to get back on track with what you want to do to accomplish this year. And if you win 4 games, if you win 5 games in a row before a loss, you're still a serious team. You're still a team that they have to take serious out there. They're no slouch. And the BC Lions assessed this team, and they called everything the right way on offense. Defense, they could have maybe made a little bit of, adjustments too, which is why the Saskatchewan Roughriders still scored up 20 points. But I think a lot of that has to deal with what Cole was saying earlier, where you got really good offense, you got a suspect defense, but the other team is just well more balanced. And it all starts from their quarterback play because the other team has inconsistency at their quarterback play because they're playing the second string quarterback for a second week in a row and getting mediocre results, which resulted in a loss this week. So thinking about what Vernon Adams Jr. did, throwing for as many passing yards as he just did again. I mean, you can't take this lightly at all, ladies and gentlemen. Look at the fact he threw for 451 passing yards. Yes, he had a touchdown and 2 interceptions. And some of you are probably thinking, well, that's probably the first time you've had somebody on here who has more interceptions than passing touchdowns. Correct. However, he makes up for it with this rushing touchdown. It balances it out. And we've had picks for this pick in 46 episodes at least once where the quarterback had the same amount of interceptions as he had touchdowns because I mean, he might have thrown for 400 or 500 yards almost, and the difference that he made on the ground balanced it out. And the same thing goes here because this quarterback is not even known to be a rushing quarterback on a consistent basis. He's more of a pocket passer. He throws for 450 yards, for Christ's sake. I mean, look at that. I mean, that's a lot of passing yards you got to throw. And, Slouch can throw for that many passing yards in a game. Like, regardless if you got different rules, it's a different league, it's a different setup or not, you still have a different type of football game that you're playing than in the NFL. So there are some adjustments. 3 downs for a first down instead of 4. And the other different things that are going through the quarterback's head that have to change your game style. And for you to be able to throw for nearly 500 passing yards, 451 is closer to 451 passing yards is closer to 500 passing yards than it is to 400. So don't you steal my thunder here when it comes to Vernon Adams Jr., people. I'm just telling you. Think about this right here and right now when it comes to Vernon Adams Jr. If you do not have him in your top 2 or top 3, or let alone your top pick for MVP of this league so far through 6 weeks, you're not paying attention enough, and you need to watch the game more, but also listen to us because we have been preaching about this guy, and he has been a part of this pick for either me or Cole. It feels like every single week since we started the CFL coverage. And even I think when Ryan McCarthy was here, I think he picked him or I picked him either that week too. Like, we have talked about this guy every single week, and not just in the stat line and as part of he had an effect in the game a little bit. Like, we're talking about him as the MVP of the entire league for the week. And, we can choose people in the NFL. We can choose people in the UFL. If they do something good for the week or they do something bad, make them the snowflake. But the fact that we're choosing a CFL quarterback is one of our 2 picks between the 2 that we get between me and Cole or our guests, as this guy has got the pick at least between the 2 of us at least once each week for 6 consecutive weeks, except for they had a bye week 1 week, so they didn't get it that week. But still, every game they've played, he has had a pick in the dog of the week. And that just goes to show that this year is something special for him and something that he may set some records for personal bests by the end of the year if he continues to keep this up.
It was hard for me to pass up Vernon Adams Jr., but I was like, I don't want to choose him again. But I would totally understand why you would, because yeah, I mean, just when I think that he's going to have an off game, he just comes with a total that, again, it's like Madden numbers. So yeah, I couldn't hate on that pick if I tried, because I 100% agree with you. Vernon Adams Jr. right now, he is the runaway MVP right now to me.
It's like when I analyze the stats and I'm putting this together, I was like, I'm kind of hoping that somebody else can get the award this week other than him, because I don't want to see anybody fail, but I want to see somebody like have some healthy competition to where they can keep this up, because at some point when you're not going against anything, you kind of coast and, you get comfortable, you get complacent. And I don't want to see Vernon Adams get complacent. I want to see him throw his way into the NFL, because I feel like he might be one of those ones from the CFL, like Warren Moon, that can make an impact in the NFL if he's put in the right situation.
Yeah. And I'm hoping that for him. And if he keeps with these performances up, that's exactly what will happen. I think we will see him in an NFL stadium in the fall. And we might see him this fall. I mean, if he keeps up like this, his team might pick him up in December. You never know.
We're going to see at least one scrub team out there. It happens every single year. We're going to see one team that gets through 5 or 6 weeks. Looks like one of these teams we've been talking about, like the Blue Bombers, who might be 0-4, might be 0-5, and they make one move, and they can get hot, and make a wild card spot. It's the percentage is lower with each game you lose, but not to say like the Angels in the outfield, little kid said back in the 90s, it could happen. Like he did. He told us that several times throughout that movie. We believed him, and it happened. So some comedy out there with this, but looks like we got one comment before we go to our next commercial break here from Sig Diggy that I know you are dying to say.
Oh Lord. Diggy says, I was tempted to say that's what friends are for. Cole would start, keep smiling, keep shining, knowing you will always count on me for sure. That's what friends are for.
The balance and powers, man. That's what I'm talking about.
It's never a bad time. It's never bad to hear Mr. Johnson sing a song. Thank you, Sig. I appreciate that.
if Cole had the energy and if we could do it to entertain the people, I would love to create a show where he just sang for 2 hours straight. Now, I don't know if he'd be able to do that now,
Ooh,
at this particular stage in his life. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of energy that goes into singing now.
Yeah.
Okay, when you do it for more than a minute. I mean, I get it. I mean, you see the picture behind me. I used to play slapping the bass a little bit professionally, okay? So I know what's up. So got some good times from that. But I can also tell you is that practice makes perfect, okay? And I wasn't perfect, so I had to get out of that game. So that's what I'm saying. Like, I was okay. But I'm not like Cole. Cole has definitely been singing a lot in his shower, a lot while he's cooking, a lot while he's driving probably to get to this point because you can't be a slouch. And I'm not throwing any jabs. I'm giving him his flowers again because I can sing a little bit and people have heard my work, but it is nothing like what Cole can do like that. Like, I got to warm up. Have a few tries before I even have the courage to do it here. You guys can't get me raw. You've only got me a few times, and I have dropped an egg every single time. Then Cole has overshadowed me in good graciousness anyway, but and deservingly so because he is much better and talented than that. With me as singing and many other things when it comes to this game too. So I'm just a student soaking it up like a sponge, man.
Well, that's how we all have to be, brother. That's all we all have to be.
Learn from yesterday and today and get ready for tomorrow.
That's right. Thank you, Sick. Thank you, Drew. I appreciate that.
Anytime, brother. Like he set it up like a volleyball, and I spiked that thing on over to you, and you served it right on back. We kept going back and forth for a minute, and it felt good. I love those moments.
Yeah.
But, speaking of getting ready for those moments, we got to take one more commercial break. But when we come back, we've got featured attractions, which I know we got the one thing we've been letting you hang on for an hour and a half for. It's time to bring it on up here in about 2 minutes.
Coming up next, the featured attractions. This is Total Football Talk. Comey Media Incorporated, creating content magic in the real world.
In a world where chronicles of the past are brought to the streams, whether the content is relatable or completely beyond your realm of life, there is no shadow of a doubt that this show is absolutely full of shenanigans. Get ready for
D. Willie in the evening,
this Sunday at 10:05 p.m. Eastern,
exclusively on Sertoba Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, look. Hey, stop playing games. Y'all already know. Go ahead and toss him some Willie Bucks. Ain't nobody playing around. Hey, $sign D Willie 87. Go ahead and hit him up on the Cash App and go ahead and give him some Willie Bucks. Look at Drew looking stoic, ladies and gentlemen. Stoic on that $10 bill. So go ahead, slide my man over some Willie Bucks, and we good. That's all I'm saying. We good. Slide some Willie Bucks.
Sertoba Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome.
Oh, yes. The tradition, the pageantry, the spectacle, the history, the slut. Wait. I gotta rep my brother's stuff right. All my DMV soldiers, stand up! And welcome to the Commander's Gridiron Report. You want your commanders to be repped right? Well, D. Willie is your man. Commander's Gridiron Report. Every Tuesday at 11:05 a.m. Eastern, 10:05 a.m. Central on the Sertoba Media YouTube channel. Music by J. Cool.
Where my soldiers? Right side. Commanders. Where my soldiers? Left side.
Welcome back to Total Football Talk, your source for hard-hitting gridiron action. The boys are back on your screen right here. So we got a couple more topics to bring it to you before we get on out of here. And with that being said, let's take it on into the featured attractions. For our featured attractions, we're going to start this off with our main graphic that we've been showing you throughout this episode as a teaser for the past 90 minutes. And that is this right here. Hall of Fame wide receiver Jerry Rice threatens reporters during golf tournament. When we put that into perspective, Will the 49ers legend receive any type of punishment, or will the 3-time Super Bowl champ get a pass on this? What do you think there, Cole?
Unfortunately, I think he's going to get a pass. Now, reason being, he's considered literal royalty in San Francisco or Santa Clara, if you really want to be technical. He really can do no wrong when it comes to the 49ers, and he still is heavily affiliated with the team. Not as a coach, obviously, but just as an ambassador, basically, if you will. Thank you, Dusty Rhodes. He
hard times.
Hard times. It is really, for some reason, it's very difficult for him to get punished for missteps. I hearken you back to when 7 years ago he had the wonderful fortune and this bright brain idea of being a Popeyes commercial ambassador. And there's nothing wrong with being an ambassador of fried chicken, but he wore a helmet with a fried chicken, and I mean it was like a wing that was attached to the face mask. He is prone to actually having some bad ideas, and if he didn't pay for that, he's not going to pay for being a black Ken. But I don't think he's going to receive punishment. I just think he's going to. I think you might have somebody say, "Come on, Jerry, you know better than that," and it'll just be that.
I agree with you on that. I think he's feeling the pressure that there could be potentially a tight end labeled as the greatest wide receiver of all time before he hangs up his cleats. And for somebody in the tight end position to get that position, or let it be Tyreek Hill or somebody that's of a different generation, of today's generation, that he doesn't agree with because the way the football game is played now, that could be what he's feeling. He's having an internal struggle about it. However, and this is just my opinion. This is not what I've read or anything. This is my opinion. But looking back on that and how he reacted to that reporter, he's dealing with this in his dark times. Like you talked about earlier about people being able to put a mask on, people being able to wear different hats in different places, pretty much. Okay, he's trying to do that, but some of his true feelings they're wearing them on a sleeve, like Dante was talking about earlier. Except for this is the other thing that I was explaining to you, the other side of it, where the one part we were talking about how the violence was involved. This is where I was alluding to earlier when I was kind of fumbling my words for a little bit because I was feeling when I was starting the show, but now I'm waking up again. When it comes to how he was and how he reacted, it reminded me of what you were talking about earlier, Dante, and the fact that we're talking about these people that can't control their emotions in the best light. Like even at the age of like what Jerry Rice is like in his 60s now, because he played into his 40s and early 2000s. He is still having problems with channeling his emotional intelligence. Okay. That's something that I've had to learn and get better, just me personally in my own personal life over the past couple of decades, because if not, I wouldn't be able to handle half the things I handle in adult life now, just because of how you have to have a certain emotional intelligence. You can't let your emotions be on your sleeve with every single thing you do. Now, it is okay to be passionate about things. Like he would have gave a passionate answer. Like some of us are passionate about what we're chasing out here. That's one thing. Okay. That's one thing to be passionate about what you're doing, but it's different when you're snapping back and you're threatening a reporter because you're not liking the question that he asked you about a certain Chiefs player, a certain Chiefs dynasty, based on if they win it again this year, like how does it affect the 49ers dynasty that they're trying to build over there? All of this was like wrapped up into a question that was worded with probably a tone that Jerry Rice didn't really like. And because people who have issues with their emotional intelligence, they cannot handle when certain people raise their tone a little bit or bring it down. But the difference between the two is nowadays you have to find that median of where you can say what you need to get across to the general public in a certain way. You might be able to say it your old school way to somebody else, that you're hanging out with behind closed doors or on the street, or when you're in that group setting of where you're comfortable with being able to say stuff like we say stuff in our group chat. Like I said to Sam earlier, that I probably would never say to the average new panelist that would come on this show, just because of all the camaraderie we've had in that group since it started, because we're comfortable with saying certain things and being ourselves. Right. But comes to certain ways of like, you would behave in a group chat. You can't do that in real life. And Jerry Rice maybe is getting senile in the 60s. Who knows? When I think about all that, I got to put all that in perspective and think about the fact that Jerry Rice might just be losing his mind a little bit. What do you have to say to that one?
I remember a story back when he was still playing, and it was actually right at the cusp of his prime. And this was, of course, when the triplets were starting to get rings. And so they played I think it was the 92 NFC Championship game. So, of course, this was when they played the Pro Bowl after the Super Bowl. So Dallas dispenses of the 49ers. They go to the Super Bowl, they beat the Bills and win it. And then they go to Honolulu the very next week. And before the game's played, they're having this volleyball game. And Jerry Rice comes up to Michael Irvin, and Mike he's in vacation mode basically by then. But Jerry had the presence of mind to walk up to Michael Irvin, turn him around and say, "Yeah, you got us. You lucky. But I want you to understand something. I'm already in training now for next year, so you better be ready." The dude, he is legendary. The dude is wound, and the dude just is all focused on the next thing, and never really is satisfied. And I think he still has that mentality, and he took that with him off the field. It serves you well when you're a player, but it serves you horribly when you are a citizen. And I think even now, like you said, so eloquently, 2 decades away from the game, and I think he still has that red mentality. He still grinds. He still feels that angst, and that's just how he rolls. And I don't know if he could turn that off, but he has to learn how to. But then again, he is in his 60s, and they say that you can't teach old dogs new tricks. Well, if that's the case, that's problematic.
Yeah, depending on who you ask, let's say once you hit your 30s, you're pretty much set in your ways, or you hit your 40s, or definitely by the time you hit your 50s. He's in his 60s. He's definitely not changing.
No.
So, and plus, I mean, whether we want to admit it or not, I think the pandemic screwed a little bit of everybody up at some point. It depends on how the magnitude is, because people were locked up in their houses for so long or so little, whatever the case may be with their particular circumstance. But some people took them over a year to get back to work because their business or whatever made them work from home or whatever. I mean, you feel it because you work remotely too. I mean, you know exactly where I'm coming from with this. I mean, you know the aftermath of that, but still, you know, everybody lives a different type of lockdown. I guess I'm looking for the right word. I can't remember right now off the top of my head, but we pretty much were on lockdown is what it was. When you're like forced and it's against your will and you're thinking about all the different things you could be doing because you're retired and you have all this free time, maybe the way his mindset was mixed with a little bit of pandemia threw him off the deep end to where now he's just snapping at the wrong person who tweaks his buttons the wrong way each day, which is not healthy. So he needs to get it together.
That's the problem right there.
Yeah. So, and I can tell you, Jerry, I don't know. I might have to make a short out of this part right here, but I can tell you this. If you let it fester, and this is somebody who's like much younger than you, like you're lucky you haven't had what happened to me last year happen to you. This is how you handle your problems on a regular basis. It's like,
oh gosh, yeah.
Like stress management is key, and is definitely, that's why, like, you know, I'll get into it more when I get to this latter part of the show, but you'll understand here in a minute, guys. When it comes to that, we still have another part here when it comes to the featured attractions.
Hey. Who's giving them the business?
Now, with this, we kind of answered a little bit earlier, so we won't go too far in depth with it, but both undefeated teams, the Montreal Alouettes and the Saskatchewan Roughriders, lost during CFL Week 6 action. Does this loss change the flow of teams for the rest of the NFL season? I mean, my bad. Let me redo that in case I do make this a short. Does this loss change the flow of the teams for the rest of the 2024 CFL season?
No. It doesn't, and the reason why it doesn't, Both. Well, both are suffered from their starting QBs being out due to either injury or being hurt in that game.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if the injuries are lengthy, then of course the answer will have to change and it'll be yes. But if it was just due to bad performance from the team is relatively healthy, then I would say, yeah, it would change. But no, I don't think it will. I still believe, to me, the Alouettes seem to have they seem to have had the greatest momentum, but I would not call them the best offense. They seem to have the greatest momentum to me of all the teams going into this past week. The Roughriders, to me, I think had the best, and I still think they have the best defense, but they got the first test, and you saw what happened. Against, to me, a team that you probably could say has the best offense. So I really believe that what the Roughriders and Alouettes need to do is they have to just take that look in the mirror, and they have to have the next man up mentality. They can actually play shorthanded for a spell, and if they can play shorthanded for a spell when they're full strength, they'll be even stronger. But to your original question, no, I don't think it changes the landscape all that much. But what has changed is, unfortunately, my partner's volume. And what he was
My apologies. Like right before, like when I get to a point where I feel like I'm about to talk, I'll clear my throat and I want to mute it, but decided I don't to pick up on the mic.
Mhm.
So I'll forget to unclick it sometimes, and that's where part of the problem is. But right now, based on what Cole said, I agree with a lot of it. But one thing I'm going to piggyback on and kind of end with is if they have to spend an extended time with their backup quarterback in there, their season's going down the drain because they've already proven that with their backup quarterback in just 2 small appearances in the past couple of weeks, they can't get it done with their backup quarterbacks. And if they get put in that spot to where the backup quarterback has to play, they're screwed. Or if they have a lack of running attack, they're screwed. Or if they just have a lack of offense that the other team is able to step it up on defense, they can't recover. So especially when you look at the way the Lions manhandled the Roughriders, like I'm concerned about their majority of their season just based on how they play when they play good teams, because there's teams that can beat teams that are 500 or under, still have a decent enough record and make it to the playoffs because of where they're at with their division and who's in their division or whatnot.
Right.
However, what concerns me is if they, they still float around and get to the playoffs at the end of this year, and then they play a said team like the BC Lions again, they're going to get the floor wiped with them if they didn't learn anything from this past week. And I think the big things they have to learn is they need to get a little bit more contributions from their running attack. I mean, that was definitely something that we saw that, they put up 14 yards on 12 carries, and this was on the BC Lions side, and they still beat them. Okay. You had the same amount of rushing yards you had for receiving yards, and you still won. Okay. When you're rushing attack, on your other side, you had 2 touchdowns by Alouette, but you cannot rely on him for the entire game. When you have somebody that's rushing that many times and getting that many yards per carry, and he's only getting 1 reception for 7 yards, there's a dynamic there that I feel like they're missing out on. And that is they need to have the 2 backfield if they're going to run it that many times, because 12 times for 72 yards is like great for another person. But in comparison to what Alouette had done in the first 5 games leading up to this is like he got humanized a little bit in this game too, because we're used to seeing him run for 19, 20, 21 carries and getting 100 and some yards easily each and every game. But because they faced good competition with a decent defense, it was better than their offensive line. He struggled, and when you see these highlights, he struggled until they moved the ball down to where they were like in field goal range, and then he would break off for one of those 2 touchdowns. Like he didn't just break off for like a 5-yard touchdown and get that touchdown. Then he actually had to get some speed and get up there, but they were actually in they were like 25 yards or less away from the touchdown. So they were close enough, but they weren't any dink and dunk touchdowns, which goes to tell you he still made an impact on less carries, but you obviously need to run the ball more if you're going to score 15 more points, because when he was running for 19 and 20 and 21 carries per game, they were winning decisively, but you couldn't get them enough rushes in this game. So what you should have done is you should have had a secondary piece like they've done with other teams in professional sports. Have the 1A and 1B back. Yeah, he might not be as good as the 1A, but at least he's complimentary enough to where he can still eat up some yards, to where the other running backs' yards are just as meaningful, if not more meaningful, and you get production out of 2 running backs, which adds to the stat line, which helps you move the chains, and 3 out of 4 first downs, because you don't have 4 first downs like they do in the NFL. You only have 3. So you have less opportunities to get the first downs. And here you are right here and now paying for the lack of production from your running back, which in most cases, had he not overperformed in the first 5 weeks, I wouldn't even be talking about that. But because I see that drop off this week, that's what I'm concerned about between these two teams, between the Roughriders and the Montreal Alouettes. I'm still high on the Alouettes because of what Ryan McCarthy said to me in his one episode he's been in so far this season. And the things that he taught me about that history of that team and what they've done before they even got to Montreal and since. You know, when it comes to right here, now that both teams have suffered an L, I will sit here and say Montreal is better than Saskatchewan. But we may have just found out this past weekend that BC Lions are not a team to sleep on because of their quarterback, but their entire team is clicking on all cylinders, and they're going to be a team to watch out for the remaining 2/3 of the season.
Yeah, that's good analysis. Yeah, and what I would like to just see, what I like to see to me, and I think I'm with you. I think if you have to compare the two teams, I like the Alouettes a little better, because seemingly their defense is not as good as the Roughriders to me, but they do come up most times to play. Offensively, they're explosive, but they just simply can't run the ball. And the Roughriders, they commit to running the ball, but they can't always click when they run it. And I think that gets in the way. That might get in the way just a little bit more. But yeah, to me, of the two teams, I think I like the Alouettes a little better in terms of overall picture. But in terms of the style of play, I like the Roughriders better, because I think they're ready. They're ready to play for the Stanley Cup. They have the style of play that can be Stanley Cup championship caliber, more so than Alouettes, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And we do have one more topic to get to on the featured attraction, but it's actually probably the saddest of them all.
Who's giving them the business?
We lost a lot of people in Hollywood this past weekend, but we also lost somebody on the gridiron, and somebody that was gone way, way, way too soon. That was definitely very surprising. When you look at former NFL wide receiver and Super Bowl 47 star Jacoby Jones, shockingly dead at 40, how will he be remembered, and how should the Ravens honor the former legend beyond the 2024 season? This is a different scenario than we talked about with Kyrie Jackson with the Vikings last week. I mean, you're already going to honor him with a number on the patch, you know, if you're going to do the typical thing. But this is your Super Bowl 47 star that you arguably probably wouldn't be a 2-time Super Bowl champion without him. What are you going to do to honor this guy if you're a part of the Ravens staff there, Cole?
And he came very close to actually getting the MVP in that Super Bowl too.
Yes.
You asked how will he be remembered? Well, he did have a remarkable touchdown reception. It actually was a catch and run, and that was great. That was a great highlight. Of course, the other highlight in that Super Bowl for him was a goal line to goal line touchdown, kickoff return. So he'll be remembered for those two plays, along with the 80-yard Hail Mary bomb from Flacco to him in the waning seconds when they were down 35 to 28 to the Broncos with about 30-ish seconds left in the game. And that catch and that touchdown that he got deeper than the deepest man of the Broncos, that, to me, I think that particular play, I think, propelled the Ravens to being the Super Bowl champs that year. Otherwise, I think we would not have seen them even compete for the AFC crown, because I think they would have been eliminated, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, I think I credit him for being on the business end of the play that propelled the Ravens to the Super Bowl. And I credit him just I credit him just a little bit more than Flacco in being the person that brought them the championship. And he will be remembered fondly for those plays.
Absolutely. I mean, he could have been arguably one of the biggest pieces to Joe Flacco getting that big contract extension from the Ravens. Like, you don't have Jacoby Jones, you don't have what happens in that Super Bowl. You don't get paid the worst contract. Well, I wouldn't say the worst, but one of the worst contracts for somebody to get paid and not give the level of production that was warranted by the pay.
Hey, who's giving them the business?
And now we have to get to my favorite part of the week, the snowflake of the week.
Hey, who's giving them the business?
That one for clicking the wrong button, but for right now, it's time to get the man, the EP of all EPs, to give us his pick for the snowflake of the week. And I wouldn't be upset if he picked me.
No, you'll be fine. Let me see. Let me look at this stat sheet. Who should I pick? Let's see. Well, I'll pick the Alouettes. Alouettes all together. Nah, they'll escape. Let me see. Shall I select the Lions running game? Nah. I'll let them go. Let me see. Should I select? Let me see. Should I select the Let me see the Stampeders secondary? No, I'm gonna let them go. I'm gonna let them make it. Should I select the Elks pass rush? No, I'm gonna let them make it. No. In fact, everybody in the CFL could take a huge sigh of relief because the snowflake of the week does not belong to you. It belongs to this person. Jordan Addison, come on down. You're the next contestant on You Are an Absolute Troll.
Oh,
what were you thinking? Okay, so for those who are unaware, Mr. Addison, he used to play at USC, got drafted by the Vikings. The off season before the regular season last year, he had a lead foot, but it was described that he was going fast to drop his pet off at the veterinarian. So I was like, okay, fine, I'll let that slide. But still, he was going ridiculous speeds. Like it was like 90 or 95 in a 55. So I'm like, okay, I'll let that go. But that shows me there's a sign of a little bit of mental immaturity. But then there's news of him being arrested near LAX for suspicion of DUI. Oh man. I tell you, these players seem to not understand the gift of the privilege of playing in an NFL. I don't get why. You have enough money to where if you're going to be sauced, call an Uber or call others or another car service that you might be able to afford and have them drive you around. But no, you're bulletproof. Like I said earlier, you hop behind the wheel and then you blow more than a 0.08 when you get stopped. Are you kidding me? Come on, man. You already had issues driving. You're going to heap upon more issues with driving by being a hazard? No, dude. That's just not how you're supposed to roll. That's not how you're supposed to roll. Now, for those who don't know, according to the police report, dude was driving a white Rolls Royce and he was blocking a lane of I-105 westbound. And it just turned out that he was a little sauced and he was asleep behind the wheel. So you got to make better decisions. I mean, come on, my man. Come on. I get that you're young, you have a lot of exuberance, you want to enjoy life. I get it. But you have to have a stronger head on your shoulders, man. You can't do this. You can't be a hazard to society because when you are sauced, now he's fortunate at the moment because the The blood alcohol content has not been released yet, but suspicious DUI makes you think it's over 0.08. So you got to think. You got to use your brain. And if you are going to be drunk, don't get behind the wheel. Or if you even think you're going to drink, just simply eliminate that altogether and either get a responsible driver or get a driving service. But don't risk your health and don't risk the health of other people because you think you can be good and you're inebriated. No.
Yeah. Plus, when you're not really thinking about you're kind of being selfish to other people if you're going to go out there, blitzed and drive around. Like, you need to figure out alternative plans if you decide you're going to drink and want to go home later. You can't just be drinking and driving and get behind the wheel. It's not smart. But Cole picked a great snowflake, and mine's a two-parter. Mine's a person, and then the other one's a
two-parter. Okay.
So it'll be a quick one because I got less facts than. I think the two facts between the two individuals, the one team and the one person, will be enough, but about as long as what Cole just did. So I think it'd be pretty respectable. But thinking about what has transpired in football, especially with what happened yesterday, I'll get to that in a second. But my first snowflake, the person I would have to say is myself. Okay, I gave Cole the option to do it. So I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna give myself a snowflake of the week because, without going into too much detail, basically, you talk about the emotional intelligence, but it cannot really prevent anxiety or a panic attack or whatever I was experiencing when I first started this show 2 hours ago. I'm just gonna be straight up and real with you guys. I was not feeling right. I was not feeling. It wasn't as bad as like when I had the stroke, almost 15 months ago. But it was definitely kind of an uneasy feeling because I put a lot into these projects. Cole puts a lot into the prep as far as like what we're seeing in these transitions and stuff that he's built and will continue to add on to over time. But, I put, a lot of work into not only this, but the slate, but our in or out sports debate show that we have at night. And then the show that I have tomorrow that I'm making special time to do before I go to work with the Commander's Gridiron Report for a one-off July episode. It's a lot to put a lot of work into it. But I feel like I let the time restraints and the fact that honestly I got a little bit off schedule on my sleep last night because the heat really kicked my rear end yesterday. I think my body's just telling me I'm a snowflake today, not be able to handle it and to have that panic attack because I've never really experienced anything like that before. Anxiety attacks I have is why I kind of felt like it was that at the beginning, but I'm calling myself a snowflake because I have a short window to do this task. Okay. With Cole, with the other show and the other one tomorrow morning. And my body was telling me something because I was feeling some type of way about something else that happened that had nothing to do with this. So because of that, I am this week's snowflake of the week as a person. Now let's get to football. Okay. Football itself. I have to go with a kicker on a team. I guess I misspoke. I do have another person that I got to give it to, but it's based on a team that had one of the hardest impacts negatively, and it happened yesterday in the game. And I got to give a shout out to Ryan McCarthy for this one because he would have chose if he would have had the pick for the snowflake of the week, and that is the Elkamos kicker Boris Beatty, the field goal kicker. Missed the field goal with that god-awful kick out of bounds with 8 seconds remaining to give the Ottawa Redblacks a beauticious field position for the game-winning field goal as time expired, which means that the Elkamos should have their first win of the season. But because they are that bad, the kicker doesn't kick it down the middle, doesn't kick it to the left or the right specifically. I forget because I forget the clip and how I watch it might be different than how you watch it. My left might be different than your left and so on and so forth, okay? All I remember from watching it now since reading his take earlier today was seeing a kicker kick the ball and it dart off to one side. Not down the middle, but to the side. You either got paid like a baseball player gambling and getting kicked out of baseball to do that the wrong way, or you just suck that bad. You need to be replaced. So,
Lord,
should have got Jake Bates while you could CFL, but you slept on him. That's why he made it to the UFL. Now he's with the Lions, okay? Now he's in the same state, same comfort, same goals probably, but now they're NFL goals and not UFL goals. But you could have had him. You could have had him in the CFL this year if you discovered him first and you scouted him first, but because you have the worst kicker of all time, because he kicked a squib kick out of bounds. I'm giving it to that kicker this week for the snowflake of the week. The ultimate pick for my pick between the two picks. This one is the ultimate pick of the snowflake of the week in my book.
Oh my gosh, really?
Is it a show if I don't go unhinged a little bit? I mean, I gotta lay the carpet down. Gotta lay it thick in some areas, but sometimes I gotta just sprinkle it a little bit just to let them know I'm still here. I haven't gone anywhere. But that was your dose of that for today, while still battling something that it's a little uneasy. But hey, we're here. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and we have to get to the 2-minute drill now. Take us home with the upcoming games this week. And here for week 7 action in the CFL, a team that deserved it because of the way they played the first 5 weeks. I wonder if it would have helped them if they would have had the bye week last week instead of the Tiger Kitties, but the Tiger Kitties needed it really, really bad. I mean, they were just literally getting I don't want to say that, it's not appropriate, but they were getting destroyed. Okay. You be glad, FCC. I changed what was in my mind into what came out of my mouth because they literally got destroyed. Okay, they were 0-5. They're on the bye week last week. Well, this week they come back to action. As you got to look at the first game. It's a rematch of the last game that we just talked about between the Edmonton Argonauts and the Ottawa Redblacks. The Redblacks are now 2-2 because of the way they played, and the Argonauts are 0-4 because both teams have had bye weeks so far in this season. So the Elks be able to get the one up this time, or will they be able to tie the series between the two with a game apiece after this Friday 7:30 p.m. matchup, or will they fall to another blunderous bad play to end the game and give them a 5th consecutive loss?
I really want to say the Elks will get the win. I really do. But I think we might see a good game still, but I think the Redblacks will. I think they will. They'll take it home. I think they'll get their second win as many weeks against the Elks.
I agree with you. However, if they find a better kicker, they got a chance. And if they find a better kicker, I'm going to say they win this game. But if they stick with the same roster, they are going to be 0-5 at the end of this week.
Hey, who's giving them the business?
Our next game is actually on Friday. That's not a typo. They're having 2 games on Friday, and 1 game on Saturday, and 1 game on Sunday. There's no Thursday game this week. So the Winnipeg Blue Bombers' 2-game winning streak is on the road this week against the Saskatchewan Roughriders. And it's another rematch that we have from, another match that we had before where things didn't go the way of one team's hopes. Maybe they get a little redemption this time. Do you think the Saskatchewan Roughriders this time get redemption for what happened last year and they take the win this upcoming week?
That's a good question.
Because they had their number last year. Like, they didn't have many numbers last year. But the Blue Bombers had the Saskatchewan Roughriders number last year.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, let me think real fast.
Hell to the no, to the no, 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 no. Hell no, no, to the no, no.
I don't think so. And unfortunately for the Blue Bombers, I'm glad they're riding high off a 2-game winning streak, but they're playing a team now where they have coming off a big time L, and I think they want to redeem themselves. And normally, a good team, when they suffer an embarrassing L, they take it out on the next team they face. And unfortunately, the Blue Bombers, the Roughriders are going to give you a rough time in Regina. I feel bad for you. I really do. Yeah. I want them to continue the winning streak. I don't see it.
I'm with you on that. I feel like that they got smacked in the mouth this past week and being the Roughriders, and they got humbled a little bit and realized like they got a little too cocky in some spots, but they did play one of their best competition all year. You can't get so angry at them with how the result is. Right. If they improve from it, that's all you can ask for. But if they regress, then that's a different story. But I'm with you on this. Then they improve to 5-1, get back on track, get ready for their next opponent the following week. They're on to the next one after this week, but it's going to be a bumpy one in the road a little bit. Maybe not as pretty as they want. Maybe not like what the BC Lions had against them this past week with a 15-point victory. But I got a feeling it's going to be a little bit more than a touchdown, maybe an 8 or 9 point deficit, but they're going to roll away with this victory here.
Hey, who's giving them the business?
Our next game is on Saturday. The Toronto Argonauts are 3-2, traveling to Hamilton to take on the Tiger Kitties, who are back from their previous bye week, where they definitely needed to have this help, or they were going to get laid out to pasture with an 0-5 record. They would have been 0-6 if they played this past weekend. When you think about that, Cole, can they go to 0-6 definitely now with who they're playing this week, or can the Argonauts fall to 3-3 and give the Tiger Kitties their first win of the season?
Ooh, now this is tough. This is normally when, to me, I think this is normally when you have the recipe for disaster for the squad that got a big time win, and they're on the road, and they're playing a team that they feel as though they can beat, instead of being on the road like they were last week and playing a team that people didn't give them a chance of winning. And so they put forth their best effort, and they already beat them before. So they avenged the earlier L, and then they do it on the road. This is a tough one for the Argonauts. They're going to win. I think the Tiger Cats are going to be 0-6. I want to say they're going to win it. My mouth just can't say it. It can't form that out of my mouth. It's sorry.
You know, for the Tiger Kitties' sake, for their morale, I want to disagree with you. But watching them play those first 5 games, there's no way I absolutely can. I cannot pick them. The Argonauts definitely been picking some things up here lately, and they've been playing mediocre. That's probably the best way to put them. But they did just beat a team that was undefeated this past week. If they can go and beat an undefeated team to knock their streak off, I have a feeling they can continue a losing streak of another. I'm going to definitely agree with you on this and go with this team gets served their 6th straight L, that being the Tiger Kitties.
Hey, who's giving them the business?
And now for our last game of the week, which could potentially, I got a feeling this one could potentially be our game of the week here. Unless the Blue Bombers stay hot and this game goes back and forth with that Friday night game with the Roughriders, I got a feeling that the BC Lions and the Calgary Stampeders are going to be a sleeper game, because everybody's going to be like, well, the BC Lions are going to throw 450 passing yards and get their rushing attack back. Well, not necessarily. I mean, I got a feeling that we could see potentially our guy get humbled a little bit this week. Do you think that potentially happens, or do they keep rolling and rout the Stampeders this week and keep them from getting to 500?
Oh my goodness. Okay.
What you're gonna be doing Saturday night during this game, probably.
Yeah. Well, see, this is troubling. Yeah, this is troubling. The Lions of riding high. I mean, the Roughriders they're not a team to sneeze at, and they beat them by 15. So, and of course it was in Vancouver. This game is in Calgary, so they're gonna go on the road. They don't strike me as a team that feels as though they could throw their helmets on the field and get a W. But they're going to get the best effort from Calgary because they took it on the chin to the Blue Bombers. So they're going to come out with a little more fight. I don't think they have enough fight for the Lions. So I'm going to pick the Lions to beat the Stampeders.
As much as I want to pick the Stampeders, because with their lineage, they've been a pretty respectable team overall. I'd like to pick them, but unfortunately, based on the matchup here, and based on what we've seen, if we hadn't watched a game all year and I was blind picking, I might pick the Stampeders. But because we're picking a 5-1 team that had just knocked off another undefeated team this week to basically put them in first place the entire league, let alone their division. Right. I got to agree with Cole here. I'm going with this BC Lions team. As long as this quarterback continues to play, continues to stay hot, and this team continues to click on all cylinders, I don't think there's anybody that can stop this team again for the rest of this year.
Hey, who's giving them the business?
That's a bold statement this early in the year. I mean, we're only a third of the way through the year. I mean, if we've gone through 6 weeks and there's 18 games, so we're literally a third of the way. We got 2/3 to go. Anything can happen, like the kid in the Angels in the Outfield says. I'm trying to keep that alive. For those of you who don't know what's up with that, go back and watch the VHS tape if you know what a VHS player is. But right here and right now, that concludes the 2-minute drill, and it's time for us to take it to the post game.
As long as it's one. That's great. I love it. I hope it actually is recording.
Here with the post game, we basically wrap it up with a bow on what we are thinking for the conclusion of this episode when it comes to the remainder of this week in football or anything in general that we might not have touched up on enough. With that being said, Cole, I'll let you have the floor, my man.
All right. And so we're here. We now are hearing more NFL news, and normally when that happens, obviously, training camp is right around the corner. So next week, we'll be hearing teams reporting to their training camp destinations. And it is still an exciting time for me. I'm glad that we're here. I'm glad that football is returning in a major way here. And of course, you're saying, well, Cole, well, that may be true, but you and Drew have been doing football stuff and football on the field stuff ever since the Super Bowl. So we haven't missed much of anything, which is true. But the NFL is a different breed of football than any other. Same thing like the CFL. It's a different breed of football. And even the UFL, it is a different breed. Although, yes, there is parallels in terms of the field distance with the NFL and UFL. However, the energy is different because the competition is different and the motivation for why the league exists is different. In NFL, we're watching the best in the sports get on the field and play. And when we have that is what makes things exciting. It's like seeing the NBA assemble the best of its best, and they go around the world and they, in basketball, dominate everybody, both in the men's and the women's game. It's the similar feeling to me when we watch the NFL. It's like, okay, these are the best players in the world. And when it comes to football, they're getting a chance to show what they can do better than any other human being on the planet. Forget the country, on the planet. Which, yes, I know this means we'll be talking ill about Goodell and probably hearing him be booed more than just the draft. We'll be seeing a whole lot of, well, which team is going to be from worst to first? Are the Lions for real? Will the Eagles take a step back? Will the 49ers go to the Super Bowl again, or will they take it on the chin? It will mean we'll hear all those questions. It will mean also we'll hear, well, okay, which one is more real, the Browns or the Texans, or did the Commanders draft the right guy to be the leader of the team in Jaden Daniels? A lot of questions. I mean, heck, I can go with the endless amount of Cowboys questions, from can Dak actually get them anywhere close to the Super Bowl? Or can they sniff an NFC Championship game for the first time in 29 years? But the thing is, we are now at the precipice of an exciting year. And of course, yes, I know we'll get can we get Taylor Swift off the screen? Hearing that from all of you. Me, I don't care. I don't mind if we see her on the screen, just as long as she's not shown when the ball is snapped.
Mm-hmm.
When they're in the huddle, they could show Taylor Swift all they want. I don't care. In fact, I'm happy because it makes me even happier that it makes you all grumpy. So to me now, I'm rooting for more Taylor Swift on the screen, which would make you grumpy NFL fans even grumpier, which that makes my day. But I digress. The reason why football is so important to the both of us, and I'm not going to presume that I'm speaking for Drew here, but I've known him for a couple of years, and our love of football, I think, is something that we both intrinsically know.
Mm-hmm.
Is the fact that out of all the sports is a meritocracy field, but out of all the sports, I think it's the best meritocracy field that you have because you offer you offer the same amount of strength and speed, along with intelligence and heart. And when you can combine all of that in one setting on one field, and it is a test of which set of men are more than the other set of man, that gets my blood pumping. I think that gets Drew's blood pumping too.
Absolutely.
And so we get to see it now. And it's going to be on the field on full display. And in less than 2 months, the season begins. And I am looking forward to it. And heck, I'm looking forward to actually having us cover it more. So, for me, I'm like a kid at the candy store. I might as well be 8. I might as well have asked my parents for the toy that I wanted. And now I have my hands on the gift, and I'm about to tear open the gift wrapping paper. That's where I feel like I am right now. And it feels good.
Every weekend is Christmas, my man, when it comes to the NFL action.
Mm-hmm.
And, ever since they added the extra week point, it went from 16 to 17 games.
Mm-hmm.
See, it's probably even more excitement because there's more to play for. It seems like there's more, the math is balanced out to where, like, there's more teams gunning for a playoff spot in week 17 and week 18 now than there was prior, it seems like.
Mm-hmm.
We used to have a lot of intertwining within a division, but for wild card spots are bigger now. They're like bigger games towards the end of the year. And the way that they're scheduling them, they're anticipating certain things, but it's going the opposite, which nobody saw the Texans, your team, doing what they did last year. So for us to be able to get so close to have those conversations again, you guys, I'm going to leave Cole up here for a second because, again, I can't top what he just did. I take my hat off. I had it on because he spoke about me and my eloquence at times. Cole, but just basically spoke for both of us in our exit point here. But I'll put it on myself for a second to at least get my point across when it comes to this. When it comes to what Cole just said, I want to add to that with, I know you guys who watch this on a regular basis aren't really the biggest fans of CFL, okay? And to be honest, I've grown as a CFL fan this year more than at any point in my 37 years on this earth, because like you have the NFL and you have the UFL. Like I did really get really excited for the UFL because of the merger, like Cole and I. However, once the UFL started to dwindle down and get towards like that one part of the season where it was like there's only but a couple of good teams and we kind of had an idea of where things were going to go for the playoffs, it was like, we easily could have just put this show aside and not done this until NFL season came back up. But I thought the Ryan McCarthy's out there. I thought the other people that we have out there that actually really like CFL, and they might see a way that Cole and I can cover it with not knowing as much as them, but we know enough to just talk about the game to where it might inspire them to do something a little bit to change up their coverage, or maybe we can continue to watch theirs and they inspire us to try something different with this, which is why I want to try something different with our backgrounds today. I thought it was cool. It was like, let's try something different with our background, see if it looks cool, and I like it. Next week, I'll be back to 100 and not let this happen again, but we've already been down that rabbit hole. But right here, which if you're listening on the radio, none of that or anything I'm saying right now is going to be in that cut anyway. So that's going to be the beautiful part about this, because editing skills are definitely great to have when it comes to sending things off to third parties. Now, back to this. When it comes to this right here, those of you who are our real followers who watch Comey Media, Incorporated over there on YouTube, who watch Sertoba Media, who watch our Twitch channels, who need to say a big middle finger to X or Twitter, whatever it used to be called today, because apparently you now have to have some premium account to stream to Twitter now. We can't stream there from StreamYard anymore. I found that out when we started this. So I should have made Twitter or X the Snowflake of the Week for that, because they just made that official today on the 15th of July. It just happened today. So like if you, I don't know if you noticed it when you were streaming earlier with your morning show, but I saw the notification right before we went to click live. I didn't even notice it until then when I saw the little exclamation marks pop up in the right-hand corner. So like I said when I first started my final take, like there's going to be some parts that I'll leave in for the radio, but the one part I'll take out. But the one thing I can say that I will leave in here is I couldn't have said what Cole just said any better, even if I was on top of my game today. And I will get back to it. Sometimes darts throw you a little bit, you get baseballs throw you curveballs, and I can hit most of them, but some of them do bring me up. And I got rung up today. Okay, I got rung up in life when you put in a lot of work towards something and it could potentially come crashing down last minute, and you don't want to see all that because you anticipate a great, event. And it might not even be anything that has to do with the podcast. It just has to do with planning for things in life. It could be you're planning a surprise birthday party. You could be planning a vacation, and you get so excited for it because whether you do it once a week, like a routine, or you do it once a month or once a year, you get hyped for it. And then things all of a sudden don't go the way that you anticipated, but they usually do go around the way that you anticipated. Kind of get a little too comfortable with certain things, and maybe your expectations need to come down a little bit. So I'll put that on myself for how I was today, but I think you guys can tell that by the end of it, I'm starting to come back to my senses. It took about a good 90 minutes. Like I gotta work with that, but you're only human if you can make mistakes out here and overcome them in real time. Okay. And I would not have been able to do this today by myself, and I would not have been able to do it without my brother, Cole Johnson. I think that there's anybody that could have been with me on this show or any show in this time slot when I was experiencing that. I don't think there would have been anybody better to not only pick up the slack that I had to drop for today in some areas until the end, but just a better, that's not a better person out here, because the way Cole carries himself, like there's nobody else on our brother's platform, like where our brothers are broadcasting. I do with my partners, with him and Kyle, I do my best to watch everything, but every single episode of the morning shift I've watched, I've studied it. Like I study things that Cole does. There's certain things that he'll do here that I might try to come up with my own creative way to do it in my next week's broadcast or something. Like this show that we have here, not just working alongside him is helped make me better out here in these streams, but the creativity that he has, the love that he gives to his projects. I think that's why I got a little bit anxious at the beginning of this show, because when I think of other things that I have going on outside of here and other things like this, that I put a lot of my love into, and if it doesn't go a certain way that I have envisioned, that's where the emotional intelligence, I guess I got to work on a little bit more in depth. And I would have no shame in showing humility here and admitting I'm a human. Okay. We all have flaws. Okay. I had a flaw last year that almost killed me. Okay. So if I can get to this point to where it feels like things are going sideways towards the end, or towards the beginning of a show, but towards the end, I'm feeling pretty much back to normal. I got to test it to my brother here, who helped get me back on track to get through tonight and tomorrow morning, because when he said at the beginning of the show today about tomorrow morning, I wasn't even thinking about tomorrow morning yet. I was thinking about getting through the night, but I'm actually now back in mode of thinking about tomorrow morning. And it's because of not only the inspirational messages that he gives us on the morning show 5 days a week, but it's because the inspirational messages he gives you as a friend and as a brother out here, whether it's in the streets or through a video chat or through a phone call or text message. Every interaction I have with this guy has been big for me for the last 2 years, and part of the reason why I'm still in the game. So when I thought about coming close to, because the way I was feeling before we got on here, like maybe coming in a different direction, I thought about the messages that Cole said on his podcast this morning, especially the prayer that he went into in the end, which was beautifully said. And it's like, these are all like omens for me to tough it out. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. If it works, it does. And it did work, because we got back on track towards the middle of it. I couldn't have done it without Cole. And I also couldn't have done it without you guys in the comments. So Sick Diggy, Playmaker, for you being here for a little bit before your show started. Dante coming in with the clutch again too. Those of you who came through, Victor Law, yes, that even makes me be hyper even more, because Victor Law is in the house. I told him earlier on Cole's show in the comments that I would have to take him off the milk carton, and now I'm definitely going to expedite that process now that you comment on this show today. Okay, holy crap, I'm way back to normal now. Oh yes, because there's not anxiety getting in the way of like a funnel in between my words. So
the milk carton.
To be 100% real, before I flip it back over to Cole to send us home, because I took this a little longer than I wanted to. One of my effects that I have had since my TIA, mini stroke, whatever you want to call it, last year, has been when I'm fatigued. Like I'll start like my words. I'll start like I can't get a word out or something. I'll be like fumbling over a certain word I want to say, or my words will slur. When I get anxious, and it's something I've had in my entire life since I was a little kid, to where when I was running around the house as a little kid going, they couldn't understand what I was saying. I kind of have flashbacks to that when I get anxious. And I think that earlier was more so an anxiety attack, and it scared the living crap out of me, guys. So there's not enough realism out here when it comes to certain things. Because like Cole said earlier, some people want to put on a fake smile and give you the political view of it all and get through it. Okay. And I'm not talking about politics like the government. I'm talking about being political as a person, like and work your way, manipulate through the situation. That's not me. I may be unhinged at certain points, but at least it's coming from a good place. It's pretty entertaining most of the time for most people outside of myself who aren't experiencing it. So there you go. Hopefully this was an additional layer of entertainment for you today, as just being able to get through this show and get back on track because of this man that I work with and have the pleasure of working with every single Monday to start my week. I thank him more now than ever, because I don't know if I could have experienced what I experienced pre-show without him, and to get back on track to even think about doing another show today. So thank you very much, brother, as my extended outro is there.
Well, whatever I could do to aid, whatever I could do to aid, I'll do is just say thank you, sir.
Hey, it was karma, because I was like, this morning, because I was awake, I was like, I want to give Cole what I can actually give him now, because I can actually watch the show live, and I'm not like driving to work listening to it to where you can't text and drive, of course. Of course, by the time I get there, I can't really think about commenting on it because I got to get into work. So then when I get home, when I'm driving home, I'm usually either listening to another episode I missed of yours, or I'm listening to Student of the Game if I missed that, or somebody else's stuff. Like when I drive, because I have such a long drive, I can catch, if not most of an episode or about half of it, and then I'll pick up on it later. Like, I'm very dedicated to watching you guys' shows, whether it's live or post-production. And I meant what I said. Like, there's certain things that I pick up from you guys that I try to bring into each and every week. It might not stick. I might be throwing something at the wall. It's not exactly what you're doing, but it's inspired by you. And this brotherhood that we came up with this chat with not too long ago was great for moments like this and for getting everybody on the same page so we can keep doing what we want to do and achieve our goals out here in these streets.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's what it's about. That's what we're supposed to be. I mean, look, life is boring if you're going to stand on a hill by yourself. No, you want to pull people with you that has the same type of passion and drive as you do. And, for me to sit here and to have the air of superiority, thinking, well, heck, I know I can do this and not be of help, then I'm nothing. And if I were to be here and you have all the skills and I have none, and you try to offer that pull up and I just ignore your hand, I'd be nothing then too. No, it's about give and take. It's about understanding when you have the gift that you have. The most important part of that gift is to allow others and make room for the others to shine as bright as you do. And if you don't have that mentality and mindset, then you shouldn't even be on a platform with anybody. I don't care who you are.
That's my goal. You've been there a couple of times now with my show that I have tonight. It wouldn't be, it's inspired by others, what they do each and every week. So, again, I can't thank you enough. And it's like you said, sometimes we got to pick up the slack when the other one's not on top of their game. And we're only as good as our team, just because we have different brands and different, patents or whatever, doesn't mean we're not all a part of the same crew. So that's what like our crew that we have outside of here is why it's special. And why I'm looking forward to add another member to that crew as being part of the In-Or-Out Sports Debate Show now that I've finally back on track. And with that, to prove that, because I'm feeling it now, Cole. I'm feeling it. I'm not like, I'm feeling this, okay? Got to give him one more thing on the way out.
Shoot.
Total Football Talk is brought to you by Sleazeball Meaty Subs. All new Beefy Boy subs. Extra meaty, extra sleazy. Enjoy the subs. Extra more. And Hard Smack Thirst Quencher. Brand new Looney Lemon and Lime. It's not just good. It's smacking great. Oh, yeah. I'm surprised, motherfucker. Jerry Rice should learn to turn. Yeah, there it is. You get ready, because here we go. It's about to be unlocked here in about 2 hours. Jerry Rice should learn to turn down requests for certain interviews. Also, I understand he's older now, but not necessarily wiser. Having a publicist, that was my own doing. Having a publicist would be beneficial.
Agree.
He said that it was like what your take was at that point when Jerry Rice that was more complimentary than what I did. Sick, might have to bring you on here as a guest spot some point. Kind of like with Ryan McCarthy's role will be when it's the next month or so passes, when his
Mhm.
schedule frees up.
Mhm.
I still this was like the greatest surprise today. This was like when I saw this pop up about 20 some minutes ago, I was already feeling the tide shift. But when this man came out of hibernation, okay, to give me his presence, because I see it, Vicola. I see you giving Cole his presence, give your presence on other shows, but you were literally on the face of a milk carton. There was a prototype. Okay. And you know it's true because we're friends on Facebook. I found a picture of Vicola. Okay. It was the one with Snowman. That was the most recent picture. And that was you on the milk carton of my prototype. And it was being sent out, but I didn't press send yet. So it was in the draft. You could have been on the milk carton had you not responded the next week or two, because I was getting worried about you, bro. Really.
Why a milk carton? Oh my gosh.
Because it's the old school method, and Vicola is old school. I mean, come on now. You're old school. I'm old school. We gotta do something that's nostalgic to get people's attention.
Oh, I don't hate the reference. I just find it funny.
I just think of like before they sold the company to, I forget what it was. I remember those Marva made little milk cartons, and I'd be in school in the 90s. Okay. You guys were already out, but I mean, you guys were enjoying being adults and stuff. I was still a little kid, barely out of Huggies. But anyway, milk cartons with little kids' faces on it. They still had it out back then. So we need to go back to what really got us to find the lost people, because had Vicola been gone just a little bit longer and somebody in his area, good old Chicago, knows where he's at, can find him and say, look, this guy's looking for you. Will you just show up and put a comment on there because he's worried about you? That's all you got to do. Even though I could just hit him up and said, what's up? It's my fault, too, for doing that, too. There's your entertainment, Vicola. I was in the middle of a conversation with Dad for his birthday. Well, happy birthday to Pops. It's awesome that he's around to celebrate another one with you, even if it's only a phone call, video, photo, or anything like that. The fact that you have here, I wish I could say the same. So,
amen to that. Yeah. And since mine's alive, I can't say the same, and I love it. So, yes, that's awesome.
Hopefully, side note, generators in their near future, though.
I hope so, man. Yes. Oh my gosh, man. Yes.
I really wish the CFL would distribute their televised games in Chicago. Well, there is a way that you can watch it. I'll loop you in on this. If you have cable TV, which not a lot of people do anymore. However, I'm a good son. I look out for my mom at certain times during the week, go by there and help her out and stuff. So like I get access to the Xfinity app, which I can download on my phone, even though you don't have to watch it because you don't live there. You can still watch it on the go. So when I'm watching TV at work, when I'm watching TSN because it's on the Xfinity cable, I can watch all the CFL games. So there's only one out of all the games they've had so far this season that has not been on while it's live. They resyndicated it. So if you have access to the TSN channel on cable or any app that you use to watch cable and it's available on that lineup, TSN is the channel that mainly broadcasts CFL football. It's just not nationally broadcasting like CBS and NBC and ABC and all that stuff, and ESPN, because it's not, honestly, between me and you and Cole, it's not that popular to be on the mainstream channels, which UFL is going to be out of luck if they don't get their attendance up a little bit better. But I digress.
I was thinking that. I'm like, man.
The military sponsorship is what's going on. Yeah, the military sponsorship was keeping them alive. Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. Yep.
So that's why I feel like next year is going to be the big year, but we'll talk about that as we get closer towards it. It's like if they don't make an improvement between their numbers significantly, then the next year we're going to be seeing a big old change. And that's something that we'll be talking about tonight here in about 2 hours on the Inner House Sports Debate episode 115. Again, I apologize. I'm getting used to the new time. Yes, and that's why I ease up on you with the. That's why I only say the milk carton stuff, because it's I'm still getting adjusted to it. The changes I've had to make. Cole, with his work schedule, very similar to what it was. Mine was the one that changed. It was because, and I don't want to be like the negative guy or anything, but it was my work schedule that changed and flipped to where we had to move it to Monday. And then Cole, I'm giving with him with his dreams. Like he wants to pursue his dreams with the morning show. And I love watching it, as I've said in this show many times. So for me to be able to give him, even if it's a time slot, to be open and willing to forfeit, to make it an afternoon show for him to chase his other half of his dream, besides talking about sports all the time, talk about something that can add in engulf everything into one show. That's why we're not in the morning anymore, Vikala. And, that's why everything I said earlier, you could tell is genuine because, whatever I got to do, man, to give back. This man's given me a lot in 2 years. And if I got to sacrifice a little bit of time in the afternoon, even though, we would love to definitely go earlier, but I digress. I'm cool with where we're at now because we're still making it happen. That's the important thing. We're almost at 50 episodes. And whether it's Vikala showing up, whether it's, Sick Diggy, Ike, I haven't seen him today, but still wherever he's at. And, the other regulars that come up in here, it's you guys in the comments that you drop, whether they're live or syndicated, they keep fueling this because without the people, there's no point in doing this. If it's one
That's
or
right.
1,000 or 1,000,000, even if it's just one, it still makes a difference because you're taking your time out of your day to watch something that you could be watching something else during that time. So thank you very much for coming back there, Vikala. We hope to see you again. Get used to the new time, and we'll see you around at some point here down the road, at least with this show. And absolutely, I don't want the Ben Simmons treatment. Yeah, you went hard. Well, you and Snowman both, but you went hard on Ben Simmons for that little spurt in time. I'll never forget that. That was one of the first things I remember you guys doing 2 years ago because that was when all the Ben Simmons drama was going on.
Right.
So, and no big, I'm glad you guys are covering football and not just NFL. Thank you. I mean, that was the vision that we had when we first conceptualized this show.
It was.
So the part that I'm the most proud of is through all the changes, primarily with my work schedule, and then you had some changes too, that we've kept it going every single week. We might have to pull some audibles here with some guests to make it happen, but this show has not missed a week. Even the one where I abruptly got sick that morning, couldn't make it. Like we still made it happen. So everything happens for a reason. If you truly love what you're doing and you love what you're doing with the other people, you'll make time for it. So that's where we're going to be. And as long as that is the name of the game right here, I'm coming every week. And I'm going to be back next week with double the shenanigans because I got to make up for lost time today. So I got it back towards the end for you guys, but I didn't have for the whole episode. So I may be unhinged the entire episode next week. Get ready. I don't know.
Oh, Lord.
But don't cash that check because I don't know if it's full yet. But other than that, Cole, we only got one more thing left to do, and you know what it is, and you're the best at it. So I got to pass the torch over to you, my man.
All right. Well, I appreciate that. Well, should you want to reach Andrew Willingham, all you have to do is go onto the following social media homes. You can find him at Saratoga_media on Instagram, Saratoga_media on X. Well, you might not find him there anymore because you might want to throw a middle finger at Elon Musk. The other Saratoga TikTok and Saratoga Media on YouTube.
Good work.
And if you want to find me on social media, all you have to do is go on to flowcode.com/page/host Cole Johnson. That is flowcode.com/
by his government name.
There we go.
Okay, so the internet got us both. But what I was saying while the internet interrupted you, but still had me for a second, they might have got it. I don't know. But you've been on this kick today. You did it with Playmaker earlier, and you did it with me. Call us by our government name.
I can't help it. Sometimes I just feel that energy. I don't know.
Kyle Nash is negative energy when it comes to the Patrick LaVon Mahomes the second and the Thomas Edward Patrick Brady Jr. not the second like you do. Is rubbing off on each other. You got to watch it, Cole. You got to tell it when it comes to the word that starts with an A. I don't condone it because of a story that I can just tell on D. Willie in the evening when it comes back this fall.
See, there you go. I led you into a tease to D. Willie in the evening.
How about that promo the other day?
That was a good promo, but duly noted. I will refrain from calling you the A word. I love that.
I either refer to it as the A word or the government name. Like we can't be mixing the two or any of that open here just because I keep everything intact, my man. It's only I'm allowed to be called that if I'm in trouble. So if you call me that again, I'm just going to anticipate I'm in trouble, man. Then we got to have another conversation on the books. But
gotcha. All right.
This is for fun. This we are in the extended edition, but going forward, it's time to send us home, my man.
All right. Well, thank you for liking. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for subscribing. And look, and thank you for the comments today. The TFT tribe, you've been showing up and showing out strong. We appreciate all of you. And if you want to comment on any of these wonderful shows, go to the Search Over Media YouTube channel or the Comey Media Incorporated YouTube channel. We appreciate it. And hit the notification bell on each one of these platforms so you can catch not just Total Football Talk, but any platform. Enter our sports debate tonight. D-Will in the evening in the fall. Coming as Gridiron Report starting tomorrow. Or Mentality. You can catch that right now on Comey Media. Of course, every morning you can catch the morning shift with Cole Johnson. And of course, BS3 Morning Shift Cole Johnson. You can catch that every weekday morning. But I digress. For Drew Willingham, I'm Cole Johnson, here to say in parting as we always do. In life, just like a tackle, keep your head up. And always remember, you got to play until the whistle blows.
And to those of you listening on WQEE 99.1 FM in Atlanta, Georgia, thank you so much for your support, as well as Real Wise Radio. Thank you for syndicating us through the week. And as always, stay safe out here in these streets.
See ya. Amber alert! Ben Simmons was last seen at the Staples Center practicing. Oh, wait, that's Bronny James. Well, moving on.